Good evening. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? I have Councilors Moore and Thompson that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of March 6, 2024 come to order at 6:44 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried, and I do apologize for the delay in our start. At this time, we will join me for the national anthem, please. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all the sun's command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you. Councilor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? And seeing none, may I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting to order, please? I have Deputy Cabral and Councilor Moore that the public meeting of the council held under section 34 of the Planning Act for the zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2024-006 be called to order at 6:45 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Welcome to this public meeting of the Township of Springwater Council held in compliance with section 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to the purpose amendment of the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw as amended. The first part of this meeting is to present the amendment. Following, the public will be given an opportunity to make oral submissions through Zoom or in person. Any person wishing to make an oral submission is to have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and to be added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect to zoning bylaw amendment and does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or written submissions to the township before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments and questions should be addressed through the chair. Oral submissions will be included in the meeting minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker, as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information, Privacy and Protection Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the township website. We have ZB 2024-006, 2512 Sunnydale Road. At this time, I will call on the clerk to confirm notice of the meeting.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 15th day of February 2024 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 19 properties in the Township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location visible from Sunnydale Road. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
There have been 2 items of correspondence received from Enbridge Gas in an email dated February 21, 2024, and from the County of Simcoe Planning Department in an email dated February 29, 2024. The correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. I will now call upon the applicants, Matthew and Peter Van Zelden. I'll ask you to tell me what it is when you get up here, to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment. Please join us here.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin and councilors. I'm Peter Van Velzen. This is my son, Matthew. I'm here representing him in his application for the zoning amendment to permit a contractor's yard to support his home-based landscaping business, and also for the construction of a storage facility to support that business on the property. We're here today to answer any questions that you might have. I do believe that you have all of the details, so anything that we can clarify for you, or please let us know.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will call upon our moderator to provide the number of people that have registered to ask questions and make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There have been no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission or make comment.
Thank you. Are there any individuals present here this evening that would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting? And not seeing any, I will now turn to council for any questions that we may have. And not seeing any. That was fantastic. Thank you for all those who have participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. May I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn this meeting? I have Councillors Garwood and Fisher, that the public meeting of the council held under section 34 of the Planning Act, ZB 2024-006 does now adjourn at 6:49 p.m.
Can I just make another comment?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's been said often, many people like to criticize when there's barriers to entry and so on and so forth. I've previously spoken to Councillor Moore. I just want to commend your planning department. We have been working with them and they have been nothing but helpful. A lot of times you run into these situations and, you know, oh, you can't do that and you can't do that. But your planning department's done the opposite. They're like, wait a minute, let us think about that for a minute and let's see if we can't find you a solution. Too often we like to criticize, not often enough people want to compliment a positive. Your planning department has been nothing but helpful, and we would like to compliment them on that.
Thank you very much
Anyways,
for
thank
those
you for your
comments.
time.
Much appreciated. At this time, council, we have our direction following the public meeting. May I have a mover and seconder for the report? Councillor Moore and Deputy Cabral, that council having held a public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended, zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2024-006, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. Are there any questions or more discussion on this motion? And seeing none, all those in favor, and that has carried. I will now call upon our senior project engineer to provide a brief introduction. And this is on our transportation master plan. We're just gonna be 1 second here while we get this other camera, the camera up for you. So we'll just be 1 quick second here. And there we are. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Today's Transportation Master Plan study presentation will provide council with an overview of the study's consultation and review process, highlighting the study's importance. The master plan project started spring of 2023 when Burnside was retained as the study's engineering consultants. The study supports township strategic goals, including goal number 1, leveraging growth to improve Springwater as a community by building communities with the necessary infrastructure and implementing smart growth management policies. And goal number 2, corporate actions by ensuring financial sustainability through regular long-range financial planning updates and having in place master plans for transportation, water, and wastewater, and updating them every 5 years. The study, when complete, will provide a framework for making decisions during the township's capital projects planning and budgeting processes, and also during the development charges updates. I would like now to introduce Mr. Alvaro Almina from Burnside, who will make the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, good evening. It is my pleasure to be here today to provide you with an overview of the work that we have done to date on the Transportation Master Plan. We are going to go through a number of slides. I'll go through some of them fairly quickly. I'm going to try to keep this to about 10 to 15 minutes. And but I do want to start with basically three things that we are going to try to achieve today. The first one is to give you an overview of the study. The second one is to provide the progress that we have made to date. We are almost a year into the study. And also as a last point, to seek council feedback on some of the things that I will be presenting to you and some of the things that are still to come as part of this study. I can't emphasize enough the importance of a master plan, especially for a growing community. This community will double in population over the next 10 years. That growth will be concentrated, and it's prudent to plan from that perspective. And as well as to tie all of that work in transportation with all the other ongoing work that the municipality is doing around its strategic plan, the county's master plan, the water wastewater master plan, trails master plan, and many other studies underway to plan for the future. In terms of what I'm going to present to you today, we can summarize it in these 6 slides with a final one opening for questions. Why do the study? What's its purpose? An overview of the project process, some of the scope that we're undertaking in terms of what we've done, but also what we need to do moving forward, some of our current accomplishments, and I'll also talk a little bit more about some of our public consultation process to date as well. So I've already talked to this a little bit in terms of why we need a master plan, a transportation master plan in this instance. You know, the municipality is growing. In these studies, we do look at a long range, usually 10 to 20 years. In this particular instance, we're looking at the 10-year time frame. And by 2041, the population of the municipality will double. It'll increase by approximately 19,000 people over the next 10 years. And we'll have a total of about 6,000 jobs as well. So it's growing on both the residential side as well as the employment side. And so we want to ensure that through this time that there's a sufficient infrastructure to provide the proper mobility for all residents and employees of the municipality. As I've already mentioned, there are a lot of other studies underway, the county's master plan, the water wastewater master plan, your asset management strategy, all of these tied together with the transportation master plan. And in addition to what we're doing internally, the city of Barrie has commenced its own transportation master plan. And as you may be aware, the county just completed its master plan. So there are a lot of master plans out there that we need to ensure that they're all coordinated and synchronized for Springwater. In addition to just traditional movement of people, we're looking at the movement of goods. We're looking at how we can protect neighborhoods from what we call cut-through traffic, that is traffic that should be on major roads and not cutting through residential roads, for example. And a lot of that will form the framework of the final report that will come to council in the fall of this year. So as I said, there's a lot of information that we're going to be throwing into our blender, guiding principles, studies, our own assessment. And out of all of this work that's out there, we're going to be developing a 10-year strategy to help the municipality with its linear infrastructure planning as it pertains to mobility. And by that, I mean roads, active transportation, primarily as those 2 key modes. The study is being directed by Scott Ha, John Mabira, and Brooklyn Palucci, and we meet with them regularly and keep them up to date on our progress and both what we've accomplished and what we intend to accomplish over the next month or so. We have regular meetings, regular communications. The team is led by myself, as well as we have a lead environmental assessment consultant. And we have a number of subject matter experts supporting the environmental and transportation leads. In addition to the internal team and the team that has been developed by the municipality. We've also have a technical agencies committee comprised of area municipalities adjacent to Springwater ministries, as well as the county. And as well as part of the overall governance, we have been promoting the study to seek public input. And so the public has the opportunity to have a very large role in this study and the guidance of this study. I'm not going to go through this chart just to say that looks fancy. We are undertaking this study under what's called the class environmental assessment process. I would not be surprised if council has already seen this chart many times before. It is a process that sets the cycle that public infrastructure has to follow depending on a number of characteristics. And I'll just leave it at that. And this is a provincially mandated process. So we're following this such that when it comes to implementation, a lot of the environmental issues have already been addressed, and will assess the project continue to move forward without too many roadblocks. It's a bit hard to read, and we've been doing a fair bit. We've been busy. So we've started in mid 2023. Since that time, we've undertaken a number of assessments of the existing conditions. We've learned where the growth is going to be in terms of where's these extra 19,000 people that I mentioned, where are they going to be allocated within the municipality? We've been taking inventory of the cultural heritage, the natural and the social environment, and as well getting a better understanding of all of these other studies that I've talked about and what they're recommending, and making sure that we synchronize properly all around. At the beginning of December, we had our first public information center. It was held right here. It was the traditional display boards and walk-through process. It's kind of nice to come back to that, actually. And to get to that particular point, we had a number of I'll say public outreaches through social media, through emails from the municipality, through newspaper postings in the Springwater News, for example, again, promoting that the study has commenced and that we are seeking public input and thoughts that and ideas that the public might have with regards to our transportation vision over the next 10 years. At this time, right now, we are continuing to assess all the information that we've received, as well as through the development of a model, start to assess the transportation characteristics in the 10-year timeframe by 2041. We're also looking at progress that's been made in other studies, and again, coordinating all of that with the work that we're doing, with the goal to have a draft strategy or a draft vision by June of this year, at which time we'll come back to the public for our second public meeting. And then our goal would be to come back to you in the fall with the presentation of the final report and your blessing of that. So to date, and some of these slides I will go through fairly quickly, but we have typical of these environmental assessment studies is to develop what we call a problem and opportunity statement. So in looking at what the objectives were as stated in the town's wishes when they issued this study, and what we've heard from the public and our stakeholders, and we've created the problem statement and opportunity statement that reads, and I'll just read it straight out of the slide. The Township of Springwater has initiated a master plan to consider solutions that meet the needs of the continued forecasted growth to 2041. Clearly, we want to make sure that we have a safe and efficient transportation system, and not just to get in and out of the community, but to travel within the community. And we're primarily focusing on things like active transportation and the efficient goods movement as well. As I've indicated, we've done a fair bit of data collection, and through that data collection, we began what we call demand forecasting modeling, which is trying to predict how people are going to travel in 10 years' time. As part of our exercise last July, we undertook a traffic counting program of over 200 intersections and mid-block locations. It was fairly extensive, covering the entire municipality. In fact, I know it's hard to read on the slide, but every red dot that you see in the middle figure is a location where we counted traffic. And this now provides a baseline of mobility within the municipality in terms of where things were at in 2023. And we're using that to work from in order to develop our 41 database. Yes, sir.
My apologies. Deputy Kelly, you can proceed. The presenter indicated that questions would be at the end.
Thank you. The right-hand side of this slide is just showing a mathematical model that we developed to try to predict mobility in 2041, and it's just there to impress you. That's about all I can say about it. We undertake some statistical analysis to make sure that the model itself is reliable and will predict within reasonable tolerances. And that's what the graphics here are presenting to you. Just want to give you the comfort that we're doing a fine job. I mentioned earlier guiding documents, and there are a number of them, as you can see on this slide. We have been reviewing this information and considering the recommendations from all these documents and incorporating that in our work. As I've said already, there's a lot going on in the municipality, and we want to make sure that it all lines up appropriately with the work that we're doing. Some fun information, and again, council may already be aware of this. These are just a couple of graphics that represent the travel into the municipality over the day and the travel outside of the municipality. And what it's basically telling us that trips that come from outside of Springwater and are coming into Springwater, the majority of them are in the southwest quadrant, kind of in your center of Espra, Enton Mills, Midhurst. And in terms of trips that leave the municipality and where they end up, you can see the majority of them actually end up in the city of Barrie. A few go out towards the east and kind of Wasaga area, but that tends to be kind of the general characteristics of the people that live in this municipality. As an interesting note, about 20% of the trips that are made in Springwater are what we call internal trips. So they start in Springwater and they end in Springwater. Otherwise, 80% start outside or come inside. So it's actually an interesting number. It's a little high for a municipality with these characteristics. So no surprise here. The majority of the trips being made within the municipality are by car. So you have the two graphics there. The green bar represents the Ontario average, blue is Springwater. And to no surprise, this is a municipality that is car oriented. Oh, what just happened there? Sorry. Again, no surprises here. The 94% of the dwellings in the municipality are single-family detached homes. About 4% are apartments, 2% townhouse, and about 0.5% semi-detached. The graphic on the right-hand side shows the information from the census, and it's comparing the 2016 travel characteristics to the 2021. And the interesting thing to note here is that over this period, and again, we kind of were somewhat into COVID at the time, more people started to work at home. No surprise there. And more, as you see on the right-hand side of the graphic, the reduction in 2021 is a result of people not working in the same place in 21 as they were in 2016 because they were now working at home. So things are making sense from the data we're receiving. And again, we're continuing to use that to move forward with our own work. So the challenge for us then is to define a transportation system that will be able to accommodate growth. And so obviously we need to understand where that growth is going to happen over the next 10 years. So most of that will be happening towards the south end of the municipality. And as you can see in this particular graphic, a good chunk of the growth. So of just that growth, 82% will be allocated in Midhurst, and about 5% in Elmville, 8% in Hillsdale, and a little bit here and there throughout the rest of the municipality. But again, with a big focus of that growth coming to Midhurst. So as of 2041, at that point in time, the population of the municipality would be distributed such that about 60% of it would be within the Midhurst area, 7% in Snow Valley. And you see the rest of the numbers there, but with the majority of that population, again, being more towards the south end of the municipality. And I mentioned that because that then allows us to understand not just where the growth is, but how we can service that, all those new trips that will be happening within the road network. In terms of, you know, how we move forward now into our 2041 framework, in a typical master plan, the big picture strategies are about developing a road network, the road improvements, whether it be at intersections or widening of roadways, establishing an active transportation network and making sure it's connected, and having some sort of enhanced or new transit service. Those are the typical master plan big strategies. Also within a master plan, there's always the opportunity to develop operational policies. And I've listed a few here, whether they be about traffic calming, defining speed limits, establishing where pedestrian crossings, formalized pedestrian crossings can go, et cetera. And we will be looking at some of these and not necessarily all of them, but this is kind of our full toolbox of opportunities to look at. I've already touched on the Public Information Center, and I'm just going to restate that we're going to be meeting with the public again in June of this year to present our suggested strategy and get public input from that. And then our final opportunity will be when we come back to you to present the draft report. In our December 7th PIC, we had a whopping turnout of 4 people, but it was important because people had something to say and they had very interesting things to say because it was more, it was what I consider non-traditional. And the feedback we received was around, wanting to see more opportunities for active transportation. And by that, I mean more opportunities to be able to walk on roadways, or have connected bicycle systems, trail systems, so that it is a person can get from A to B without too many breaks in their trip. There was also a confirmation of one of the things that we're looking at, which was around maintaining safe neighborhoods. So keeping outside traffic outside. So county traffic should be on county roads. Traffic that's cutting through the municipality should stay outside of subdivision roads and not to try to make up time cutting through there. So we did have, although somewhat limited, we did have a reinforcement of kind of where our thinking was and is with regards to the study. And then we did receive a formal submission through the city of Barrie, in which they advised that they were starting their own master plan, and that they one of the things they want us to look at is to ensure that we carefully consider the travel movements between Midhurst and the city of Barrie. There's some concerns about increasing traffic, kind of southbound in the morning and then northbound in the afternoon. So very quickly, in terms of where we see 2041 at this stage, is we see developing a network that is connected with regards to road links, with regards to perhaps some transit service, connectivity around active transportation. And of course, when I talk about transit service, I'm not saying let's get into the transit business of Springwater, but let's use the link service and see if that can be used differently or maybe more within the municipality. And I'll give you an example in the next slide. But this one is just touching on a couple of the theme around having a connected roadway network. In the county's master plan, they made a recommendation that 2 Springwater roads be uploaded to the municipality. Kind of the continuation of Forbes Road into Craig right out to County Road 27 and Floss Road 4. So we are considering that in our overall scheme, and hopefully, and I think it will, knowing the Midhurst area, that connection to Forbes would be a welcome one to folks that live in the Finley Mills area and through Dorian, and to get away from all that traffic. Some opportunities around active transportation. We are looking at what the county has just completed. We're looking at work that the municipality had already done. And again, making sure that all of these trails are connected in some shape or form so we have continuity and that we have a safe environment for users. And then finally, through transit, there may be opportunities to, because we're going to have so many people now in the south end of the municipality, perhaps either through a request through Barrie Transit or through Lynx to see if there is an opportunity to have a transit service, even if it's in the peak periods, to kind of go through. For example, there's a purple line, which I hope you can see. I don't think there's a pointer here, but a purple line through the center of Vespra area cutting up through Snow Valley. So perhaps there's an opportunity for some sort of looping to capture a lot of the growth that's going to go there, as well as the growth that is, or the residents that are now being serviced through in Midhurst with the existing Lynx service. But there's no question that the municipality will continue to be an auto-oriented municipality. But people have indicated that they want to be able to have some options, particularly as we age as a community as well, to be able to have transit available as well, or some sort of paratransit as well. So I'm grateful for the time you've given me and then for your consideration. We do have a couple of additional points, and you've been kind enough to listen to me, and I'm going to leave you with some homework. We do ask two things of you, if possible. The first one is if you can just let us know how council would like to participate in this study above and beyond what you're seeing today, and also if, as you're out with meeting with your constituents, if you can spread the word about the study and advise them that there will be a public consultation session coming up in the summer in June, and just to get a little bit more participation through this process. So lastly, where we go from here is we are assessing the 2041 conditions. We will evaluate and identify alternatives. We'll develop a strategy which we'll present to the public, and then we'll come back to you with a draft report. And if all goes well, by the fall of 2024, we would have completed this study. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you very much. And I will turn to Deputy Cabral for a question from slide 11.
You don't necessarily have to go back to the slide, and through Mayor Coghlan to you. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative. When we're talking about data capture, data capture is great when the data that's captured is accurate, because it allows you to create accurate models going down the road. So my question, I guess, or how the data was captured as far as traffic loads and vehicular movement was captured, because the township, depending on where you are, I'll give an example, is depending on the time of year, because given the summertime long weekend, if you were up in the Elmville area, I can assure you the traffic there can be horrendous at times. Yet midweek, same period in any given year, it could be 30% of what it was, say, on a Sunday or a Friday night type of thing. So I was kind of wondering, does your modeling take into consideration that variable? And my second question would be, while we're contemplating growth within the township, does your modeling contemplate traffic from outside our township due to the growth that's happening around us? Because a lot of the, say, from the Midland area, they're headed to Collingwood for work. People in Collingwood are working at, or Wasaga Beach are working in Midland or Victoria Harbor or something like that. They're just transiting through the township. They're not stopping. They're just using one of our corridors to get from point A to point B. And I know from my own personal experience how drastic a change that can make when people find a route to get from point A to point B that they never used before. And Google's helping us with that, because when there's an issue, they do it. So the real question I guess I have is, with your modeling and your data capture, how accurate would you say that it would be, given time of year that it was captured, and contemplating growth outside of our own municipality?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. So the first question about the capture of the data, it was a 2-week exercise towards the end of July and the beginning of August. So there we captured what is the peaking characteristics of the municipality, because there is more traffic through here in the summer. And so we looked at mid-block locations between intersections that were captured through automated technology, so there are sensors on the road that would capture those traffics. And then we had a number of what we call turning movement counts at intersections being done manually by these were staffed. And so those obviously are fairly accurate, within typical human error. But we're quite confident that the data that we collected, which once we collected it, we rationalized it against other data that we have through other studies. And so we're confident that we have a base that is accurate enough for a strategic level document. And so with that, we've moved forward to start to develop a 2041 model. So yes, bottom line is we're confident with the quality of the information that we have.
Right.
And then to answer your second question about external trips, absolutely. If I were to go back to that figure, you would see like there were colored circles surrounding that municipality. Those are what we call gateways into the model. And that's where traffic from outside the municipality comes in and goes out. So we will be capturing those trips. And as I mentioned in my presentation, one of the things we're looking for is these through trips that just kind of cut through the area. And we want to make sure that if anything in the model is telling us that they're using, for example, township roads they shouldn't be, then our recommendation would be to implement whatever measures would be appropriate to keep that traffic within county roads, for example, where they would belong.
Follow on?
Follow on and then Counselor Fisher.
Thank you. And if you could do me a favor and slip back to, I think it was slide 11, where you denoted the areas where you did the traffic capture counts. And I just trying to get a picture, because I can certainly understand why we would have them in some of our areas, say in the Midhurst area where we're concerned about traffic cutting through, or we have intersections with traffic lights that are prone to a lot of traffic. But I'm also looking at some of our rural roads that effectively right now might not necessarily be representative. And I don't know whether you can share with us whether or not there were a number of rural roads. Take, for example, the base line. Folks would use that road from Tiny Township to run literally all the way down to Forbes Road if they wanted to, past that to Partridge before getting on the highway or getting on 93 or going to 11 to head up north. So would those there particular dots represent an extended period of time, or would that still be within the 2 weeks?
All of the, through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
All of the counts were undertaken within that 2-week period. No one location was extended. We had to do a couple of recounts due to damage to the equipment. And in one case, there was actually a emergency construction required on one road. So we have to just find a new candidate road. But what I can say about the location, and it was a process that we worked with town staff to make sure we were able to capture as many representative locations as possible. Because this is a strategic level, kind of 10,000 foot study, we can afford to have a little bit of tolerance. And so we're quite confident that at the end of the day, what we did capture is representative for our needs.
Counselor Fisher.
Just a comment and a question. First off, I was glad to hear mention of Midhurst and the concerns with traffic flow through Midhurst. One thing I did notice, there was no mention of Craig Road. Am I to assume that that will come in the report in the fall?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Craig Road is shown. And I know when we look at part of our consideration, we will under roads here, I know it's hard to see, but there's a blue line that's showing the extension and connecting to 27. So that to me, as a transportation planner, that's an important connection. And I would hope that particular road could be implemented sooner rather than later because of all of the traffic issues that you have through Finley Mills and so on.
Follow on.
A quick comment. I appreciate you saying that. I think as the ward councilor and a resident, it's an integral piece of infrastructure that needs to be put in place. So I like the fact that I see it up here and you recognize the importance of it. So thank you.
Counselor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So 2 questions. One that actually might go towards CA or Schmidt, I'm not sure. Just when we're speaking about the different transportation options, one, the Springwater Links. I know that obviously that's run by the county. What say do we have as a township with respect to the stops along the route, because that's definitely one of the concerns I've heard regarding that, the links is that it doesn't stop potentially in the necessary places for people to utilize it fully.
I can turn to CO Schmidt and then provide further comment if necessary.
Thank you, Mayor Coggan, through you, Councilor Alexander. Councilor Alexander, you're correct. It's not run by the Township of Springwater. That said, to the extent that we want to reach out to our partners at the County of Simcoe to have further discussions about potential areas where we would want the bus to potentially stop. I think that's something that the County of Simcoe, I would hope, would entertain or at least be open to have discussion with. Whether or not they can accommodate would be another discussion, I guess. But I think that's part of what this exercise is too, is that, try to identify some of those key areas and high traffic areas and try to, again, coordinate some of that with the County of Simcoe.
The next plan for the next portion of the links is going to be a strategic session with county councilors. So that at that point, we bring that information to the county. We do hear often that they want stops everywhere, but the point of the links is not to be a milk run, it's to move people. So it's to try and find that balance. A lot of the times is there's nothing in Minising, there's nothing why aren't they stopping at the Georgian Mall? And so there's lots of that. So that will be coming this year. Deputy Cabral.
Just in addition to that, there was some sessions back last year, I forget exactly when it was, looking at what the priorities were going to be for the county and the municipalities. And that was one of the key parts that came up. But I also wanted to say that you run into issues, I hate to say it, with other municipalities on what they might be prepared to partner with you and what they might not be prepared to partner with. Because one of the things I did hear was that there were some difficulties experienced in trying to stop at specific areas, just due to let's just be blunt about it, due to the fact that municipality may not want to allow that to happen. So even though county might find it very desirable to do those things, sometimes it's just not entirely up to them to be able to do it on their own. It'd be great if we had more cooperation. That would be the key, so that it works for everybody, not just individual areas. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're just speaking to when the city of Barrie has their own transportation, New Tech has their own transportation, Wasaga Beach, Clearview, and I think it's Collingwood has their transportation. So it's trying to coordinate individual ones with it over, and sometimes they don't let the county stop where the county wants to stop. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so thank you. And I appreciate that the conversations are happening. I think that's the first step. So the second question for yourself, sir, would be, have we looked at all at the Uber rideshare program? I know I've spoken to CEO Schmidt about this. It's something I spoke to someone at Roma about, and just the ability where Innisfil Township had a pilot program. Again, I don't know if it's a route to go down, but I don't know if municipalities are starting to go down that route for somewhere of our size where, again, we have limited resources with a links type transportation system. I certainly don't see us building our own, just if there's benefits in that.
Through you, Madam Mayor. If I may brag, we also did the Town of Innisfil Master Plan, and it was through there that we introduced the Uber share. And that is one of the things that we are considering. Again, with all of the options, the big tool of options that we have, the big bag of options, we also want to make sure that they're feasible for you and practical. So that's the analysis that we're undertaking right now. And I can assure you that what I referred to as paratransit in my presentation, these are the types of things that we're looking at as well as being more feasible for a municipality with the character that it has, kind of with a number of municipalities quite a distance apart from each other and trying to keep everybody connected.
Nothing further. When you were speaking to the 20% of internal movements, what would be average for a comparator? How over or how much more would you say?
20% would be slightly higher than usual. I'd say most are in the, because again, we would have to look at equal sized municipalities and equal character. In the more urbanized areas, it tends to be less. So I think you're in the ballpark of municipalities of that are equivalent to to Springwater.
Perfect. Are there any other questions at this time, Council? No. Councillor Fisher?
quickly. Will, when we get the report back in the fall, will it also encompass things like pedestrian crossings for high traffic areas? I'll give an example, Finley Mill over to the new proposed hub. Will it take that into account as well?
Maybe not specific, through you, Madam Mayor, maybe not specific to one location, but certainly we will be bringing forward policies on how to treat things like traffic calming, pedestrian crossings, speed limits, and other policies that the municipality may want to have available. But yeah, short answer is yes, but not specific to a location.
Thank you. Council, at this time, I'll ask for a mover and seconder to receive the information. I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Alexander that the presentation from R.J. Burnside and Associates regarding an update on the transportation master plan be received. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
At this time, I move on to question period. Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any submissions for questions?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There has been one submission from Perry Ritchie of 1211 Floss Road 7 East. And he states, Mayor Coughlin and fellow councillors, on this week's council agenda under information reports, item 11.2, Elmvale District High School Community Fundraising History, the report from staff regarding the amount of funds raised for the purchase of equipment and enhancements for the new addition on the Elmvale High School. For the record, I do not support spending this money unless it is for the high school, and even then spend it wisely. As a former counselor, I sat on the fundraising committee and I helped raise a lot of that money. Looking back, we had just started to use the facility when COVID set in and closed everything down for the past couple of years. It's just this past year in 2023, Springwater Township has been able to exercise its partnership agreement we have with the county, with the Simcoe County School Board. From the time COVID set in until now, we really have not used the facility since opening it back up. I'm hearing good things about the facility, so please keep up the good work. Now that we have the facility up and running, we don't know going forward what we will need, and to spend these funds on anything is not what they were intended for. So again, please spend wisely and let's make our high school the best it can be for the students. Thank you.
Are there any questions from members of as a response to that, or when it comes up as a response? Comment from Councillor Alexander?
Sorry, I'm not sure. Sometimes I just wanted to really thank former Councillor Perry Ritchie for sending in his opinion and his comment on it. And I know he worked very hard over his numerous years on council with the high school and the different committees to raise that money. And I think he is a great resource for us to go back to get the history and all of that opinion. So I just would like to thank him for continuing to be engaged.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And just to also add on to Councillor Alexander's comment, speaking specifically around the facility, I did speak with staff earlier today and can confirm since the facility reopened for residents to utilize post-COVID, we've had over 1,000 residents or 1,000 folks participate in the Tuesday and Wednesday drop-ins at that facility. Again, I think that exemplifies the partnership that we have with the school board and with that facility is extremely beneficial and needed for Springwater as a whole. And I thank former Councillor Ritchie for his question as well. And I will be speaking to this later on the agenda.
Are there any members of the public who have questions during this period? And not having any at this time, I will turn to Councillor Thompson. Your microphone.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I would like to table a reconsideration of resolution C655C -2023 passed on November 15th, 2023 regular meeting relating to the Barrie boundary adjustment matter. I am seeking the reconsideration in order to get our mayor, deputy mayor, and CAO back to the table. Since our November 15th resolution terminating talks, there's been a lot of chatter about this from the city of Barrie and media outlets. I don't think it's beneficial or productive for our residents and our community to not be in the room when the future of Springwater is being discussed, and really feel it prudent that we reconsider this.
Thank you. I will turn to Clerk Ainsworth for the process on a reconsideration. point of clarification?
So just so I'm aware, we're reconsidering discussions that could potentially enter into the redrawing of boundaries, correct?
I'm going to turn to Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The reconsideration, I will read the original motion so that council is aware of exactly what motion is being requested for reconsideration. There, in accordance with the procedure bylaw, no debate is permitted. Once I read the motion and explain the process, the mayor will go immediately to a vote. Once a seconder is received for the reconsideration. So the November 15th motion read that the report item listed herein be received as information, the City of Barrie proposed boundary adjustment, and that council hereby terminate discussions between the City of Barrie regarding the city's proposal for boundary adjustments and cross-border servicing, and they be so advised. And that council direct the mayor, deputy mayor, and CAO to pursue discussions with the county of Simcoe and township of Oro-Medonte regarding potential cross-border servicing partnerships. And further, that a letter be sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, advising of the township of Springwater's termination of discussions with the City of Barrie, and that staff be directed to submit a delegation request for the Roma conference regarding this item. If a reconsideration is supported, this motion would be back on the table for debate, full discussion, possible amendments, and a vote. And that would be the effect of council supporting this being reconsidered.
Okay. At this time, I will call the vote. Sorry, at first I need a seconder for this. I have Council, sorry, no, moved by Thompson, seconded by Garwood. And all those in favor? Oh. And I'm going to turn to Clerk Ainsworth as Councilor Moore has her hand up.
Thank you. I just have a process question. If it is not successful, what does that look like for council? Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. As per the procedure bylaw, the item cannot be reconsidered or retabled for 12 months from the date of the original motion. So that would be November 15th, 2024.
Thank you for that clarification. The motion has been read. All those in favor? Oh, recorded vote. Yes, sorry.
I'm requesting recorded vote.
Clarification?
Sorry, can we just clarify the yes and the no and how that stands, please?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The motion reads that that resolution C655C 2023 passed at the November 15th, 23 regular meeting regarding Barrie boundary adjustment be hereby reconsidered. So if a member of council would like to have this motion from November 15th brought back to the table for discussion, debate, and a possible amendment, they would vote yes. If council does not want to see the reconsideration be tabled, which means the motion would not be discussed, they would vote no. Are there any other questions of clarification?
I'm not seeing any.
Thank you.
Deputy Cabral?
Yes, through you to Clerk Ainsworth. Clerk Ainsworth, would it be possible for you to advise us what portions of that particular motion have already been carried out?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The portions that have already been carried out, the mayor, deputy mayor, and CAO have commenced discussions with the county of Simcoe and township of Oro-Medonte regarding potential cross-border servicing partnerships. A letter has been sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the termination of discussions, and the delegation request was submitted to the Roma conference. However, it was not approved for the Roma conference, so the delegation was not heard.
Deputy Cabral?
Just clarifying then, so the two pieces of that particular motion that have not changed is the portion where this council voted to terminate boundary negotiations and the cross-border servicing piece. Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So once again, the motion would be that resolution C 655C 23 passed at the November 15th, 23 regular meeting regarding Barrie boundary adjustment be hereby reconsidered. A vote in the yes means that you would like to have the reconsideration brought forward and re-debated. A vote in the no means that you are not in support of reconsidering the motion. And I will call members by name, one by one. Councillor Garwood,
Yes.
Councillor Alexander,
No, no,
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
yes.
Councillor Fisher,
No.
Deputy Mayor Cabral,
No.
and Mayor Coughlin.
Yes.
The reconsideration is carried.
And I can turn back to Councillor Thompson for debate. Oh, and I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder to have this motion back on the table. So moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Garwood. And Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just for a procedure matter, I would advise that the motion now in its entirety be divided to deal with the items that have been dealt with. Remove those, vote on those, and then keep the remainder of the motion that council would like to debate. That way it doesn't affect the previous actions that have been taken. The letter has been sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. That action has been taken. The Roma delegation has already been requested. That action has been taken. So that's what I would recommend, just to ensure that those remain in the record of the township.
And to keep the discussion on topic, if it's amenable to council, we can separate them first so that the conversations happen piece by piece. So at this time, I would need a mover, and so we have a mover and seconder, so it is on the table. So now I need someone to move and second the amendment to separate the item to have cross-border servicing dealt separate from boundary adjustments. So those would become two, and to remove the portions of the existing motion that have already been dealt with. So essentially now we're creating two separate motions. I would need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Thompson and Councillor Moore. And again, council, actually I'll ask Clerk Ainsworth to confirm.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. This motion to divide would include that the report be received as information, the City of Barrie proposed boundary adjustment. It would include, actually, I would need to check with Councillor Thompson to include the direction regarding the mayor, deputy mayor, and CAO to pursue discussions with the county and Oro-Medonte. It would include the piece about the letter being sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the direction to submit the delegation request. All of those would be dealt with in this first motion, leaving only the termination of discussions with the City of Barrie to be dealt with subsequent to this vote.
I understand that. What I don't understand is how do we get it on the table so that there's two very different things to be dealt with? And I think that council would like to vote separately on just the cross-border servicing, just the boundary adjustment. So I need to create two separate direction and just get rid of everything else. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So that would be dividing it into three, which would be the first part I've just dealt with, and then we could table the boundary adjustment and then subsequently table the servicing.
Thank you. I will look to your guidance. So we have it on is it the amendment that's on the table now? The division of it. So we are voting on chunking this into two different things. The third one is just getting rid of everything else. Councillor Fisher?
Clarification. So when you say we're dividing it, I'm sorry, just for my own clarification. we're dividing the cross-border servicing discussion and the potential for moving borders discussion. So those will be two different things we vote on. Okay.
That seemed to be palatable to council when earlier discussions. Deputy Cabral.
So right now we would be voting on the rest of it, including the letter that we sent out and the ongoing discussions with Oro-Medonte and the county. I just want to be clear on that. It's what we're voting on now. So we're voting yes or no to that particular portion of the reconsideration, correct?
Clerk Ainsworth, I'm just going to ask that you verbally confirm this with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Yes, this first motion will be receiving the report, the letter to the minister, the Roma delegation, and the discussions with the county and the township of Oro-Medonte. And then two separate motions will be tabled once that is dealt with.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just to clarify, we are voting on something that's already been done.
We are removing it from the motion so that we can just deal with two items separately without any. That way we know exactly what we're doing. Yes, we are getting, yes. We are dealing with procedural matters. Council, you have that in front of us. All of those in favor? And that has carried. I will just give our clerk a second here. Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The remaining portion of that motion reads, and that council hereby terminate discussions between the city of Barrie regarding the city's proposal for boundary adjustments and cross-border servicing, and they be so advised. I would just need to know if council would like to discuss the boundary adjustment or the cross-border servicing first.
I will turn to Councillor Thompson as it was his motion.
My intent here tonight was just to get back to the table and have the mayor, deputy mayor, and our CAO back in the room when these items about the city of Barrie are being discussed, and we know that they are being discussed. I was also wanted to refer to the correspondence from our mayor that she gave to council on January 19th, where she said for the Minister of Housing indicated that he would prefer a local solution. It's very difficult to have a local solution if we're not at least in discussions. And I'm not saying we agree to what the city of Barrie proposes, but we need to be there when the future of our township is being discussed. And so that is my intent. I would like to have the three of you back in the room when the city of Barrie is discussing with the province their intent with the township of Springwater.
And in discussion with other members of council today, it was my thought to have it separated because it seems that some people on council want a fulsome discussion. Some people want only portions of things to be discussed. So I was just looking for very specific direction in order to move forward. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. Just I don't see how you can separate the two because they are one. I mean, my perspective of how this occurred is in the prepared statements. I think Deputy Mayor Cabral alluded to the fact that we started the discussions with the city of Barrie by going forward and asking them for cross-border servicing. The city of Barrie came back to us and said, we'd be willing to do cross-border servicing, but this is how we see it. And so the two topics are so intertwined. I don't see how that they can be separated. And I would just like you in the room listening and having an ear to the ground as to what the province and what the city of Barrie have plans for us.
I'm going to have the, I need something on the floor. Right now, we don't have anything on the floor. So I will just put this as it is sitting and remaining. So I will have moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Deputy Cabral.
But I'd like to know what I'm seconding first. Are being these, which one is going first? Is it the border part or the cross-border servicing? Because I can support one, but not the other.
And at this time, right now, they are still together. And I was going to allow for conversation about a fulsome discussion before we have an amendment to separate them. So I do have it seconded, and I saw Councillor Fisher's hand.
Few points, we're, if we're at the point where we're separating two things, it was one, I've made it very clear, I'm not interested in shifting the border, certainly not to the degree that was presented to us. The second, I've operated under the understanding that Barrie doesn't want to offer us cross-border servicing. I think that was made clear. So I'm a little confused. We want to go back and have a conversation with them that I think it's been communicated to us that they didn't want to have necessarily. Just another point, as Councillor Thompson said, he'd like us to be in the room when the province and Barrie are discussing our future. I don't know that these clandestine meetings are happening as of yet with the province and Barrie that they'd allow us into, or that's even happening. In addition to that, I do agree with Calandra's point that we should have a local solution, but I don't think that means we have to go necessarily outside of Springwater. I think we can actually come up with solutions for our own growth inside of key areas that would satisfy the province, and we don't necessarily need to lose anything to Barrie. So those are some quick points that I have.
I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I had discussion with Councillor Thompson earlier on. There's a motion or a notice of motion on the agenda for tonight that addresses some of the concerns that would prepare this council going forward if a reconsideration was to take place, where I believe that this council would be in a far stronger position to then do a reconsideration and have some idea of where we're headed. As far as being at the table, I would suggest to Councillor Thompson that we are trying to come up with solutions that would literally negate the opportunity for a border boundary adjustment. And those are solutions that have yet to be entertained, researched, examined, brought before this council for fulsome discussion. The one thing I said to you, Councillor Thompson, earlier on during our conversation is I would not support this resolution or this reconsideration this evening. And you knew full well on looking at the agenda that there was something on there that was directly specific to us moving forward with looking at some of those other options. And I think what we did right now was premature. I think we could have waited until we had a report back from staff so that staff would have had an opportunity to explore some of those options and basically put us in a position where we would be able to cooperatively work with other municipalities to address concerns that affect all of our municipalities, not just the city of Barrie itself, without a boundary adjustment. And so I can support the cross-border servicing piece because that's what this council originally wanted to do in order to provide some development and some jobs. And we got rebuffed by the city of Barrie, and it quickly got turned around into a border boundary adjustment, which to my way of thinking is extremely unfair to the residents of Springwater Township. And I speak for them and only them. And that's why I took my stance. I took my stance because I wanted to move this forward carefully in a measured, methodical way so that this council would have information before reconsideration came before this council again. And I was clear to you, sir, you have every opportunity to do it, and you did it. And now here we are. But I can just tell you my position still has not changed. And to be quite frank, I believe it to be an error in judgment.
I'm actually just going to call a point of order on error in judgment, actually in our code of conduct, where we're not permitted to speak to members in that way. I do have Deputy Cabral, and then I have Thompson, Garwood, Fisher, Alexander. Moore, do you want, I'm going to put Moore on here too. Councillor Thompson?
Sorry, so just to the mayor, I guess, I'm not sure who I'm speaking, I guess to the public, I guess. I too represent the public. I was elected to represent the public, and I'm reading the same reports that you guys are reading. And when the city of Barrie came back to us, they offered us the very thing that we'd asked them for, was cross-border servicing, which that's what we asked them for. And they came back and said, we'll give you cross-border servicing, but this is how we see things. They also put something in their proposal that really interested me, and that was the protections of the headwaters of Willow Creek, which is quickly turning into Willow River. Our farmers' fields on Willow Creek flooded 3 times last summer for the first time ever. And planning a conservancy around Little Lake will protect our farmers downstream. And this environmental protection, I think, is much needed. The third thing, which also we really haven't had an opportunity to even share with the public because we're not at the table. Mayor Nuttall's been very clear about, he calls this, his plan, the largest compensation package in the history of the province. He's promising our taxpayers a 10% revenue share of any new taxes created through this proposal, plus $8 million in new taxes to us, a 30% increase to our revenues and to our bottom line. I'd like him to be accountable for those numbers and to explain to us how he plans to make that happen. I think we have a responsibility to our residents and to our taxpayers to at least be at the table and to listen. What I don't want, what I don't feel comfortable with, which what might happen, is that the province just make a decision without us present there. And I think that we need more information before we vote on any of these things.
Thank you. I have Councillor Garwood and then Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I don't agree with splitting these out. I believe this needs to be handled in one, at least that's my opinion. From how I look at this, and please somebody correct me if I'm looking at this incorrectly, but being at the table does not mean that we are agreeing to a boundary adjustment. Being at the table does not mean we are agreeing to cross-border servicing. It's just being at the table. So I can see where this is going to go tonight, right? With us relitigating the past as to where we stand on either or topic. I see any agreement that comes, or even discussion or proposal that comes from the city of Barrie, if this council agrees to go back to the table, still has to come back to this table for a vote and a discussion and a deliberation and a final vote. So again, I do not see the need to relitigate whether or not we individually agree on cross-border servicing or boundary adjustments. Let's have the discussion if this council chooses to have the discussion. And then if there is an agreement to be had, and if it's a good one, then let's make that decision. I'm not saying that there's an agreement. I'm not saying that it's a good one. I support Councillor Thompson's reconsideration tonight because I believe that it is in our best interest, and as elected officials representing our constituents, their best interest for us to be a part of the conversation. By no means does that mean we are saying yes to any deal.
Councillor Fisher and then Alexander.
Although I do agree with some of your sentiments, Councillor Garwood, what I witnessed earlier on in the fall wasn't a discussion. We were launched headlong into a negotiation. We approached the city of Barrie and sat with them in good faith to discuss cross-border servicing. And within a very short period of time, only a few meetings, if I remember correctly, they were redrawing the map inside of Springwater, to your point, the very people we were elected to represent. So unfortunately, I don't think they operated in good faith. I don't think it was a discussion ever. I think it was actually a bit of a Trojan horse technique to start a negotiation. And frankly, council wasn't involved until later on, but I was very shocked by what I saw that they were bringing forward. And to Councillor Thompson's point, it was very intriguing when I was told about the tax revenues we'd see off those lands. One thing, if I remember correctly, though, it was when those lands were developed, and there was a certain time to that, if I remember correctly. So we aren't guaranteed any type of revenue off of those lands if they aren't developed within a certain period of time. So I also don't believe that the conservancy around Little Lake, which is basically all green space right now, would keep farmers' fields from flooding downstream. I think that's part of a bigger issue. So, I won't be sold on it. I also won't sell out my residents. I think that one thing I've envisioned with a homegrown plan, a plan right here within the boundaries of Springwater, is we could create our own tax revenue. It's really not that hard. Why would we give away land to Barrie and have them develop it and create an excellent tax base for their city as we are forking over money for things like our new hub and having to staff it and build it. We need tax revenue here. So I think we're bright enough, and I think we have the resources, and I know we have the growth to develop our own strategy. And I understand the sentiment around the table from some of you, but I think it is premature. And I also won't be a councillor that supports redrawing the border like that for Springwater.
And thank you. And before I do go to Councillor Alexander, I just wanted to add a couple cents into this. I'm not sitting here tonight making a decision on whether or not I want to realign boundaries or whether I want to do anything. I just want to continue having the conversation. I think that the irresponsible thing was to do is to just put our hands up in the air and say, well, we'll just wait and see what happens. Because that to me is not okay. That is being irresponsible to our residents. I think that being there and telling them that no, what you showed us at the beginning, that was the beginning of a negotiation. Do we all have a very strong opinion of what that first step was? Yes, but our reaction to that was to leave the table, take our ball and go home. I think that staying at the table and continuing to negotiate, continuing to do what's right for our residents. Otherwise, we're elected to have hard conversations. We're elected to have difficult and differing opinions, and we do. We all talk to different people, but we all represent the same people. So just have one person saying, I'm doing this for the people of Springwater, that's why we're all here. That's not, to me, that's not an argument. I think that being involved in a conversation and continuing to have negotiations, voting yes to this motion does not say, here you go, City of Barrie, please take all of our land. It says that we want to be involved in the conversation. That's what I'm voting on tonight. This is not about accepting the proposal that was presented to us as an item for information. That's all that it came to our council as, is an item for information. So at this time, I will move on to Councillor Alexander Moore. I said Moore. Alexander. A is for Alexander. M is for Moore. Councillor Alexander.
All right, thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Okay, I'll try and keep this brief. I think I was pretty clear at the last meeting where I stand on this. We were at the table. We initiated the conversations with Barrie on cross-border servicing. That's what the direction was. That took a couple meetings to then turn into a boundary adjustment, which was not what we had asked for, which was not what we went to the table for. That boundary adjustment then turned into something that was in closed session, which we were trying to have conversations, and Mayor Nuttall put it in the open without telling us, leaving us scrambling and looking not very good to our residents, to be perfectly honest. I felt like I was doing backdoor deals all of a sudden. So I do not feel that Barrie has ever come to the table to negotiate in good faith. They came with an ask that's what they wanted. The conversation with Mayor Nuttall about cross-border serving was that he was really not interested in it. It was a take it or leave it, little bit of a attitude. That's not a partner in my mind. It's not what I am prepared to negotiate with, because I don't think he's interested in negotiating with us. I think Mayor Nuttall, his proposal benefits Mayor Nuttall and the City of Barrie and not the residents of Springwater. And to be perfectly clear, I do agree we need to be at the table to represent our residents. I feel we are at the table. We're at the table with the county. We are looking at options other than what the City of Barrie gave us as pretty much an ultimatum to come up with our own proposal that would go to the province on how we can solve these problems. So I will not be supporting this.
And when we say at the county, is there, I want to be clear, like what are we talking about at the table with the county?
We are given direction. I believe discussions have started between Springwater and the county. I believe the county had written a letter with,
Yeah,
I'm just talking discussions, yes. So that to me is,
those discussions have since ceased. We had our discussion with Calandra.
So that's where I feel we have the ability to be at the table.
Okay, and I thank you for the clarification. Counselor Moore.
Thank you. So the reason I agreed to the reconsideration was because I would like to see the two separated. I would like to see the cross-border servicing separated from the land boundary adjustment. And I reviewed our meeting from November 15th. So I took the time today and reviewed our meeting. And both Councillor Thompson and Councillor Garwood said they were not interested in the land boundary adjustment at that meeting. So I'm hoping then that you'll allow me to separate these two as an amendment, and we can move forward with discussions for cross-border servicing. We have some incredible projects that could just be made so much easier for those applicants if the discussions for cross-border servicing could take place. So if I could at least put that amendment forward, we could vote.
So I have an amendment being put forward by Councillor Moore and looking for a seconder for the amendment, Councillor Fisher. And this is to separate the cross-border servicing. And just for clarity, so that would mean that basically the conversation is we go back to the city of Barrie and say, we would like you to service these two significant projects and we will give you nothing. If the direction is that when the deputy and I go there, that boundary adjustments are absolutely off the table, then that's what I really need to be very clear with the city of Barrie that there is this council will not entertain it. Do not even make it an option. And that's what I'm hearing.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think that the cross-border servicing is not quite that simple. I don't think we would ever negotiate something and get nothing in return. Why? That's not a negotiation. So I think we would go there with a plan. They have agreements, cross-border agreements with other municipalities. It wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. They could certainly look at us in the same fashion. And I think with the growth that we're about to see, we need taxation to be able to pay for that, pay for the community hub, pay for other infrastructure and fire hall. We have all of these wants, but we need to be able to pay for them. And so that's what I'm asking for, is a simple reciprocation and agreement for that.
I do have the amendment to separate them. So if we can council deal as that, and then we can deal with each issue separately. So it is an amendment on the table to separate cross-border servicing from the boundary adjustment. And if there's clarification on this amendment, we can do that. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just to clarify specifically, again, when we are saying that we're voting on cross-border servicing and a boundary adjustment, if one votes on another and one votes on one, or however we end up voting, this is just to have a discussion. This is not necessarily saying that we are in favor of cross-border servicing. We are in favor of a boundary adjustment. This is just to have a discussion about a boundary. Correct?
That is correct. And
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask Clerk Ainsworth just to read that for me, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just to back up a bit, prior to the motion for a division, the motion on the table was that council hereby terminate discussions between the city of Barrie regarding the city's proposal for boundary adjustments and cross-border servicing, and they be so advised. The division of motion that is now going to be voted on would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: that cross-border servicing and boundary adjustments be dealt with separately, and I believe cross-border servicing to be dealt with first. Is that accurate?
I think we can probably just deal with the cross-border servicing first, if that's okay. Sorry, no, boundary adjustment. You're right. Thank you. Deputy Cabral?
On this particular motion, I would like to see cross-border servicing dealt with first. But that's just my opinion. If you want to do the boundary adjustment first, that's fine. I'm just letting you know what my preference would be, but I'm happy to proceed as it goes.
It is being dealt with first. Can you read the
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The motion before council right now would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: that cross-border servicing and boundary adjustments be dealt with separately, with cross-border servicing to be dealt with first.
That's fine. All those in favor? That has been carried. So you're gonna want me to have another mover and seconder. So we have cross-border servicing being dealt with first, moved by Deputy Cabral. Seconder on that is Councillor Garwood. So now we have this conversation. So the direction. We can have more conversation about this one individually. Yeah, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you. Actually, this is the piece I wanted to speak to earlier on. I just find it very comical, to be quite honest with you, because our discussion and discussion with some other members of council with respect to the cross-border servicing was that in order to have that occur, the idea was at some point in time, there might very well be a reconsideration of the original motion. Once again, that's why later on, there's a notice of motion specific to that to gather more information on it. And that's why I find it kind of funny, because the urgency to have this dealt with tonight in the fashion that it's been brought forward just seems to be put in front of what would have provided us, I think, with an opportunity to further discuss it. However, when it comes to cross-border servicing, I want to make it known, very, very well known, that there are literally, I would suggest, hundreds of cross-border service agreements through municipalities, City of Toronto, GTA area. There are lots and lots of cross-border servicing agreements in place that provide efficiencies. They're effective, they're through agreement, they resolve issues, and they resolve problems. They also allow municipalities to work collaboratively and respectfully of one another to get things done, to get what the provincial government wants to get done. So I think cross-border servicing is on the table, because I think there's reason enough to keep pushing for it. So in that respect, I think cross-border servicing is something that we would like to see. And it's not that any municipality gets anything for free or without strings attached. Water and wastewater is a user pay principle. So if Springwater Township utilizes any services from the city of Barrie, or any other municipality for that matter, we would be paying for them. As a matter of fact, wastewater plants that are under capacity actually cost the users more money per capita than a wastewater facility that is operating at a fairly good maximum rate to distribute the costs more effectively. So that's just the only point I want to make with respect to cross-border servicing. I would have liked to have seen it back on the table, maybe just not tonight.
And thank you for that, Deputy Cabral. And just for clarification for members of council, members of the public and staff, Councillor Thompson did come to me quite some time ago, and I did make you aware of that. And while I understand that one member of council wanted to move forward with a notice of motion and one member of council had desire to have a reconsideration, because people disagree on timing does not make one person right and one person wrong, or the intent of a member of council to be anything but moving forward. Councillor Thompson had brought this to my attention weeks ago, and this council was dealing with something else. And I specifically said, if we could keep this off the agenda tonight, it would help us stay focused on another issue that we were dealing with. So the timing of this is in no way any disrespect to your notice of motion this evening. Your notice of motion that you brought forward, that I had learned that we had conversations about a reconsideration prior to that. I was going to Councillor, I have a list again. Councillor Fisher. Oh, Councillor Alexander.
Okay, so I am willing to move forward with a discussion on cross-border servicing. I do think, as we've all stated, I think it's something that we need, and I think it could be beneficial. I do not want land boundary adjustments on the table for negotiation. I don't think it's necessary. And I would like to see, prior to going back to Barrie with these, or reaching out to Barrie to start with these talks on cross-border servicing, that we do look to our staff for a report with respect to what other municipalities are doing, what are our options here? How do we move forward to those negotiations? So we are prepared for those negotiations.
Any further comments or questions on this? Is we are voting to move forward with no, it's actually, it's written in the negative. So can you just present that? Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and my apologies ahead. It is very procedurally complex, so there will be a lot of amendments and various motions, unfortunately, that I will advise council should go through. So at this time, what is on the table is that and council hereby terminate discussions between the City of Barrie regarding the city's proposal for cross-border servicing, and they be so advised. What would be appropriate would be an amendment to this motion that would read that the word terminate be struck and replaced with reconvene. So that would mean that council hereby reconvene discussions between the City of Barrie, remove the words the city's proposal, as I believe that might not be relevant at this point, and also my apologies. That is what I would recommend as an amendment.
Councillor Alexander.
Procedurally, can I further amend to add that prior to the discussion that we request a staff report on other municipalities crossover services bordering?
I'm going to ask that I'm going to steer the ship here. We are going to first deal with the amendment to get this into the affirmative. Once that has been voted on, so that it's in the affirmative, so that we are now renegotiating with the city or going back to the table. At that point, if you would like to have there to be another stipulation, you can put forward an amendment and we can do that. But if we can get this, right now it's in the negative, so we would have to actually vote the opposite of what we're trying to do, because the amendment that was put forward in November was written in the negative. So yes, so it doesn't just be, okay, great. I need a mover and seconder. This is to Councillor Moore and Councillor Garwood. So this is only dealing with the cross-border servicing. This is simply taking the resolution that we have, taking it from the negative, putting it into the affirmative so that we can move forward, and it's changing it. Yes. So it's that we're going to get back to the table regarding cross-border servicing and only cross-border servicing being dealt with right now. Council, all those in favor?
Read it, please.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The amendment on the floor is that the word terminate be struck and replaced with reconvene, and to remove the words the city's proposal for.
Deputy Corral.
I need to know what it's going to read after as well, not with the amendments included. Is that possible?
It is not possible for the clerk to predict what the council is.
I understand that, Mayor Coughlin, but I do think it's possible to read that with the changes so that I can fully understand how those changes will implicate what we're going to do next.
You could, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Should this amendment be carried or be supported, the effect on the main motion would be and that council hereby reconvene discussions between the City of Barrie regarding cross-border servicing, and they be so advised.
Yes. Councillor Thompson is asking for a recorded vote. This is just on the amendment, though. So if I could ask that we don't have 17 recorded votes tonight and we just have recorded votes on, because it'll be once everything's said and done. Thank you. I appreciate your indulgence. So Council, Clerk Ainsworth has read this, all those in favor, and that has carried. And now at this time, Councillor Alexander has an amendment. Councillor Alexander.
So yeah, I'm not sure the easiest way to do this. Knowing of the notice of motion coming, I want to marry the two. I don't want one to go ahead of the other. If you like, there's certain parts of the notice of motion that pertain to this specific motion. So I would like them to be joined together in the most easiest procedural way possible.
Thank you. And I absolutely will move forward with that. my thought and direction going forward was because there's been such a long pause between us being at a table with the city of Barrie, we will take this direction with no cross-border, if council's direction is that there's no boundary adjustments, we take that resolution back to the city of Barrie and say, are you willing to continue to negotiate with cross-border servicing? If they say yes, we come back and we say, all right, what does that look like? Because we could send staff to go do a whole bunch of work on cross-border servicing and what that's available, and we could literally go to Barrie and they could say, no, see you later. So I'm just making you aware of that's just my preference to save us all, literally just have a meeting. Are we willing to continue conversations? This looks different. If we're not, if we are, we'll come back and we'll get all the information we need from staff, but to have all that work being done and then it just kind of not is that would be my concern. I have Deputy Cabral and then back to Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm just going to say that that notice of motion is actually exactly what is needed to go along with this here reconsideration of the cross-border servicing. Because the notice of motion does not speak only to cross-border servicing, it also looks to staff to potentially provide other options that can be utilized in a cooperative manner with the city of Barrie and Oro-Medonte for that matter, to help us move forward. So I would ask that the notice of motion that is intrinsically a part of this here right now be brought forward and that the key portions at the bottom, directing staff to engage in 4 different areas, be attached to this motion going forward. I don't think it's as simple as going back to the city of Barrie and saying, hey, we're here to renegotiate cross-border servicing when there might be a number of other options that we can present to them to work in concert with that would be more palatable for everybody concerned. So I would ask that that be the case, and I would look to Councillor Alexander to agree as a friendly amendment to your amendment.
I have Councillor Alexander and then Councillor Thompson and more.
Yes, that's essentially what I was getting at. I wasn't sure how much we were able to pull that notice of motion up because it's not procedurally, it's not an actual notice of motion, but that's exactly what I'm looking for. I do not feel it's a waste of staff's time. I think there are options potentially other than the city of Barrie we could be potentially dealing with if they're not willing to come to the table. So it's not necessarily a staff report on how do we work with the city of Barrie, is what are our options for cross-border servicing, as well as the other things that Deputy Mayor Cabral had put out. That would give us, again, the background so we could go in and do negotiations with whomever, show the province we're serious about this, that we do understand there's a problem there that needs to be rectified, but we'd like to do it on our terms.
So so this is on there. Clerk Ainsworth is going to meld this into an amendment. The concern I have about having a conversation about cross-border servicing without considering the city of Barrie is when I look to our neighbors, I don't see a lot of facilities or capacity for them to even offer us assistance. We don't need Tiny doesn't, I don't even think Tiny Township has wastewater. So I mean, really the direction, who of our neighbors, like Clearview is not going to be servicing us. Oro-Medonte, if this is just about Oro-Medonte, I'm just curious as to, it seems interesting that we're looking into cross-border servicing when there's no opportunity around us. Sorry, it was just clarification. Councillor Alexander. No, that was Councillor Alexander.
So again, this is nothing official I've heard, but I had heard that the county is looking to work with municipalities and have some of that uploaded to them. And so I think there's opportunities. I think there's just a lot of opportunities out there that we can explore other than just the city of Barrie. I'm not saying take them off the table, absolutely not, but I don't think they should be the only ones at the table.
And I will turn to CEO Schmidt maybe to highlight the conversations that have happened with the County of Simcoe regarding water and wastewater and what that potentially could look like.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So through you to members of council, my knowledge or my understanding is that water and wastewater servicing has been an ongoing on and off again conversation at the county for many years. And some of you may recall that the most recent regional government review, which happened last term of council, essentially there was a report conducted for water and wastewater services. And I believe, I may get this wrong, but I believe the consultant indicated that there are certain areas within Simcoe County whereby partnerships with other municipalities could potentially be entertained. And I guess I would just further say that the county's recent discussions that we've had with the county is that the county, I think, would be possibly interested in a regional type water wastewater system. So they would have maybe some oversight over regional water and wastewater, but nothing has been confirmed through county council as it relates to that. It's just somewhat conversations at this stage. So unless I think there would have to be other ongoing discussions with the lower tiers as to whether or not they would be amenable to that. Some may be, some may not be, but really there are water wastewaters at the local level in the county of Simcoe, and that's in some regards why maybe we are where we are. We have two separated cities, the city of Orillia and the city of Barrie, who are essentially operating on their own accord, if you will, and are directly reporting to the province, and really from a water wastewater perspective have no responsibility to the county of Simcoe.
And as a follow-on, definitely as in our roles at the county, I champion this moving forward. I think that a regional body overseeing the it's not that the county is going to come in and just build facilities where we need it. It's the coordination of the existing facilities that would be taken over, potentially could be taken over, and whether that's a board of directors. And at this point, this is all talk. It was brought to county council in our last term, and county council turned it down. So it's not even on the floor at the county. This is not an official conversation that's happening. This is just the opinion of some people who get together and say, this would be great if there was a regional service. And it's literally just to take the politics out of the pipes so that infrastructure can be used effectively and efficiently where it needs to be. At this time I lost, I'm going to go with Deputy Cabral and then Council.
Thank you, Mayor Coghlan. I'm going to ask Clerk Ainsworth to put my proposed amendment, my notice of motion up there. And I would really like to know what part of that we're struggling with, because every single piece of that, even if we're going into cross-border servicing negotiations with the city of Barrie, I think it's incumbent upon us to know everything we can find out about those cross-border servicings, where they've been utilized in other jurisdictions, how they work, what forms the agreements, what the efficiencies are, and it's all contained in here. So I don't see any problem with adding to the cross-border servicing piece right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, or actually add staff directed to explore. And I have a potential, maybe you could read this, Clerk Ainsworth, because I'm struggling. Someone else, could you read this, please?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coghlan. What is before you would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add that staff be directed to explore and examine potential options, including but not limited to the following: review and analyze existing township planning policies alongside provincial policies and priorities to identify potential areas suitable for increased residential and/or industrial development beyond existing predefined settlement areas. 2, explore the possibility of establishing special economic zones through collaborative partnerships with neighboring municipalities that aim to address potential employment opportunities. 3, assess and evaluate current cross-border servicing arrangements, agreements in other municipalities in Ontario to determine their effectiveness, efficiency, and overall viability. 4, consider the potential for collaborating with the County of Simcoe to establish water and wastewater infrastructure that would support further development of employment lands in and around Springwater Township, and that this resolution be sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
I have Counselor Fisher, and then as this was I Counselor Moore, my apologies, try to keep up. Yes, Counselor Moore.
Thank you. I think that the communication back to council hasn't been great. And so if we can add that and when we have these discussions that we have with the county, for instance, or Minister Calandra, for instance, or the Oro Medonte Council, that we report back to the rest of council so that we understand what occurred during those conversations, because truly I'm in the dark. So if we could ask yourself to maybe send a report, that would be really helpful.
And so there was an email on November 19th that you received with it actually said meeting Calandra.
Yeah,
meeting
I got that.
Sorry, January 19th. And at the bottom of it, it did say, and if you have any further questions, please reach out to me. So it was just a quick, the conversation was mostly Oro Medonte. We did not take a scribe with us. So again, if you would like communication, please do reach out. I have Deputy Cabral. Oh, your hand was up. It's down now.
Just after, I read it previously and just having it read again, Deputy Mayor Cabral's, I guess, a notice of future motion. I think it allows us to explore some really excellent possibilities again within Springwater. I think there's development opportunities. I think things that we can come up with that really suit us, suit our tax base, and we can communicate that to the province. I'm worried that what we're discussing and potentially voting on tonight may tie our hands, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but would maybe tie our hands and not allow us to move ahead with exploring these possibilities that I think. I feel like we're discussing going back to Barrie, sort of hat in hand, and seeing what they will allow or what they will negotiate with us. I know we're calling it a discussion. It's not a discussion. It's a negotiation. I really do endorse what I just saw in front of me here. I think that allows us to explore real possibilities and develop areas. I think there's loads of possibilities along the Bayfield corridor in different parts of Springwater. I'll also say this, that we may be, just like we did the first time, we went in there to have a cross-border servicing agreement and it quickly changed into something else. I will say I'm worried that would happen again. Even though we put constraints on it, I think the possibility of doing things on our own is very doable, and I think has more benefit for Springwater going forward.
I have Councillor Fisher over here. I have Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And just further to Councillor Fisher's point there, I agree with parts of that. Again, though, I look at this as we are having a discussion right now about going to have a discussion. And that might exactly happen, Councillor Fisher, and you're correct. We could go and have that discussion and nothing has changed, but maybe something has. Why don't we find out? There is no harm in finding out. So we are making informed decisions for this community. That is it. That is all I'm saying tonight. I'm not sitting here saying that I want to start adjusting boundaries or anything along those lines. Let's have a discussion. Let's see what happens, and then let's come back to this table. I think we could be here all night if we continue around this same discussion. We've had this discussion a million times, and it deserves time. I completely agree with that, but I feel like we're not getting anywhere right now going in circles. So if we're going to vote on something, we should vote on something. I know there's quite a few amendments and whatnot put forward, so I just believe that we should be at the table to discuss. That is it.
And so we do have the amendment, and it essentially is Deputy Cabral's notice of motion, which is now formed part of that. And Deputy Cabral did ask what I saw within that. I understand that it's there. It's in the first point where it speaks to having our planning department look to possible solutions outside settlement boundaries. I don't know if our planning department is able to come or offer guidance to council that speaks against the Planning Act. So if the Planning Act says that development stops here, is that in any way, it's happened before in the past where it's against the code of ethics of the planning department. So I want to make sure that number one is something that you would be comfortable doing.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'd be pleased to speak to that. The planning code of ethics and statement of values for CIP says that we are to fairly represent the policies of the province and the lower tier municipalities for growth in all decision-making processes. So stepping outside those boundaries does cause an issue for any professional planner in providing a recommendation. If I were to diverge from the question a little bit and look at the resolution that's before us, I think the first bullet or the first number in the resolution says that the planning department perform an assessment against current policy. And current policy basically says you're going to build within settlement boundaries. So we would be restricted in how we could perform that assessment for council. If I'm thinking very fast and quick on my feet here, but if council were to consider an amendment to Deputy Mayor Cabral's first point and just say, let's look at lands reasonably outside the settlement boundaries that are established by the province and the county that can be reasonably serviced, and we would entertain input from the town engineer on this. And we have a master transportation plan on the go. We can draw from that as well. So there is information that we could supply back to council to show where growth could occur. I can tell you that there will be some conflict. I sat in on the agricultural committee this week, and they're not in favor of taking up any more agricultural lands, but that's a side point. That would be aside from the direction of council to the planning department that we would take into consideration in reporting back.
Thank you. And then the second one, I believe, was a special economic zone, and I'm curious as to what a special economic zone is.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I think it might have been appropriate to put the whole motion up there because it spoke to the provincial government's current priorities and the bill with respect to building homes faster, which I think if you take that into consideration does provide maybe some opportunity for leeway to identify other areas that aren't necessarily in the settlement areas. But I would suggest that if it's possible to take that word out, maybe we do that. With respect to the special economic zone, that would be an economic zone that would be put together by the townships that would be participating in it, which could be the city of Barrie, could be the Oro-Medonte, it could be Springwater Township, you know, it even could be maybe ESSA, but a delineated area that all of us would be part of and provide infrastructure to, and also derive an equal share of the tax base and any other productivity that would come out of that equally without a border boundary adjustment. So that's basically what it means is if you look at what the city of Barrie's looking for, they want employment. Well, let's help them get it. But we could do that through a partnership. We don't need a boundary adjustment. A partnership between the city of Barrie that we would both share in equally through an agreement where Barrie used some of their lands if they were applicable there, or simply worked with us with the water and wastewater to have an agreement where we both share equally in it. That would work. What's been proposed is something where we're just being told, here it is, take it. So I hope that helps kind of look at it. Basically, we're talking about could be 400 acres of property that is zoned appropriately with each municipality, and then through agreement is developed into employment lands collectively and shared equally amongst the municipalities that are involved equally again.
Fine. Is it on the amendment?
I just have a question.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
So through the chair to Deputy Mayor Cabell, that's to me sounds like a negotiation. So why would we not just take that concept, which I kind of like, it sounds really interesting to me. Why wouldn't you take that to the negotiating table with the city of Barrie and say, here's a different way to look at it?
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. That was exactly what this man wanted to do. But now we've been placed in position where we have to do it at this particular meeting instead of waiting until we got a report back from staff. with those key elements attached to it. And then at that point in time, I would have been happy to have a reconsideration because we would have had a plan in place to move forward. So that's the best answer I can provide to you, sir.
And we can, on the amendment, do you need to read it again?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And I've also heard potential changes to point 1. So I will bring it back up on the screen. From Director Herron's comments, what I did was add at the end of point 1, predefined settlement areas that can be reasonably serviced, but I will share my screen again just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So at the end of point 1, right here, if it is to be added, that can be reasonably serviced, is that in accordance with what you were recommending, Director Herron?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think it captures the gist of it. I think that potentially where it says provincial policies on the first line, what we may want to say to capture the principle and intent of Deputy Cabral's motion is that alongside provincial direction for more homes, more choices, Bill 123, which is specifically the 1.5 million homes that the province is looking for. So that gives us more fluidity in terms of what we can look at for expansion of settlement areas.
Thank you. And council, having this before us, this is the amendment. All those in favor? Seconded by Councillor Moore. All those in favor? Thank you. Point of clarification for Councillor Fisher. Sorry, you just your mic, just your microphone.
Were we voting on this? Because I thought this was a notice of motion for the future, right?
So point of clarification. So this notice of motion was going to be brought forward by Deputy Cabral.
Yeah.
Tonight, he did share it with all of council.
Mhm.
And as it aligned with what Councillor Alexander was doing, we've added it as an amendment. So we will not be dealing with it at the next meeting. It has now been approved as an amendment. So we'll be voting on the main motion and we can carry on.
Okay.
It's just as amended, correct? And Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So at this point, what council would be voting on, the motion would read, and that council hereby reconvene discussions between the city of Barrie regarding cross-border servicing, and they be so advised. And to add the amendment that was just voted on with the 4 points brought forward by Deputy Mayor Cabral.
Thank you. So council, it's been before us now, and do I need another mover and seconder? Got it. All those in recorded vote? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Would any member of council like me to repeat what council is being requested to vote on at this moment?
I'm not seeing any.
Once I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Garwood,
Yes.
Councillor Alexander,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Cabral,
Yes.
and Mayor Coughlin.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Council, we now be moving back to the second part of the original motion. It is in the negative. Clerk Ainsworth, I'm gonna ask that we just leave it in the negative to save us from having to go through those hoops. Council, I'm also gonna ask for your indulgence. I know that I'm not trying to stifle conversation, but I do believe that each of us have had more than 2 times to speak to this issue, and unless there's something pressing, I think we've all made our points clear. I think we've all had ample time. So unless there's something new information or something pressing that members of council would like to further discuss on boundary adjustments, I would like to move forward this evening. Councillor Garwood.
Just to clarify, again, for the record, we are voting on having a discussion about boundary adjustments, correct? Not
That-
boundary adjustments themselves.
That's correct. And we are going to leave leave it as it was, Clerk Ainsworth. If you could just read it for council, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The motion now before council would read, and that council hereby terminate discussions between the city of Barrie regarding the city's proposal for boundary adjustments, and they be so notified.
Perfect. Is everybody, Councillor Alexander?
Sorry, I just want clarification on the yes, no vote and how that works.
Yeah, I'll turn to Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. If council would like to remain with the direction to terminate discussions regarding boundary adjustments, they would vote yes for this motion. If council would like to defeat this motion with the effect that it would allow discussion with Barrie regarding boundary adjustments, they would vote no.
Lincoln? Councillor Moore?
We need to clarify that again, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Just the yes, no piece.
The motion is in the negative. Therefore, if you vote yes, it is no more talking with Barrie. If you vote no, that means I would like to have a discussion with Barrie. So yes for no more talking. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I will call members' names for the recorded vote, and the motion reads, and that council hereby terminate discussions between the city of Barrie regarding the city's proposal for boundary adjustments, and they be so notified. Councillor Garwood,
No.
Councillor Alexander,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
No.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Cabral,
No.
Mayor Coughlin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mayor Coughlin.
I'm almost afraid to vote now. No.
That motion is carried.
Perfect. At this time, we will take a break. My apologies. 10 minutes, is that okay? Yeah, I'm asking for a cooperative time. Thank you for the nod, Manager Hawk. He knew what to do. And we will reconvene. And at this time, I will ask Clerk Ainsworth for an announcement about our special meeting, followed by we will have our motion to extend.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There was a meeting scheduled, closed session to commence immediately after the adjournment of this regular meeting. Due to the timing of the evening, that meeting will be canceled and rescheduled for a future date. An agenda will be released once that date has been set. And at this time, we would not need a motion to extend until we reach closer to 10 p.m.
I was just trying to be efficient. All right, let's fly, guys. Here we are. So we are now moving on to our minutes. May I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes of council, please? I have Councillor Thompson and Councillor Alexander that the minutes of council listed here and be approved as presented. 1, the minutes of the regular meeting of council of February 21st, 2024. 2, the minutes of the special meeting of council of February 21st, 2024. And 3, the minutes of the special meeting of council for closed session, February 21st, 2024. Are there any questions on these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That has carried. And we have an action report in front of us here. So this is our roads needs study. May I have a mover and seconder to get the report on the floor, please? I have Councillor Fisher and Councillor Garwood that the report from the senior engineering technologist regarding the roads needs study capital planning scenario dated March 6, 2024 be received, and that council provide direction with respect to option 1, 2, or 3 as provided below. Option 1, that council endorse a capital planning scenario number 1, maintain the current level of service of 72 PCI. 2, that council endorse a capital planning scenario to optimize with an annual capital investment of 3.5 million with a 3% yearly increase. Or 3, that council endorse the capital planning scenario number 3, optimization with annual capital investment of 5 million with a 3% yearly increase. And at this time, I would ask for, I had a mover and seconders to get one of the options. I will discuss the options and we'll move forward with that. Councillor Fisher and Deputy Cabral. Just converse. Yeah. Oh, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm not going to put an option on the floor exactly at this time, but what I did want to do is for the benefit of members of council and also for myself is we have been putting funds away, and in addition to that, we put in additional funds at least a couple of years. And I think that there's a little over 2-point-some odd million in there. And I guess my question, and I don't know who I'm going to direct it to, maybe it'll have to go through you to CAO Schmidt first, is those funds that were set aside, are they being included in this here kind of scenario with these two scenarios, or are those funds that have been set aside able to reduce the impact for a few years? So, you know, are they included in moving forward with the percentage, or is that percentage based on our regular, let's say, base budget, and that money is not included in it because it's a little over $2 million? So I'm just kind of wondering, to lessen the impact to taxpayers, if we went with option 2, would be able to kind of soften the blow a little bit by drawing on that money we've already put away. That's my question.
I'll go to CEO Schmidt, and then we do have our senior engineering technologist, Everhart, with here as well.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cabral. So Deputy Mayor Cabral, you're correct. The capital infrastructure reserve has an amount of approximately, or a balance of approximately $2.2 million. That would include the additional funds that council approved through the 2024 budget, which I believe was just around $360,000. So we have been, or council has been, supporting additions to that capital reserve for the last few years. My understanding is that that money has not been included in tonight's presentation. So those funds could be utilized to assist should you wish to. That being said, I would also indicate that the capital infrastructure reserve funds are not just for roads. That wasn't the intent. You know, council may be aware or may recall that, you know, through our asset management plan for our core assets, water, wastewater, roads, and bridges. I'm gonna need some help here with regards to our infrastructure deficit, but it's, you know, in the magnitude of 15 million plus. So the idea is to be able to utilize some of those funds, the capital infrastructure reserve funds over time to assist with some of the requirements that we're going to need as it relates to our core assets. But as you may also be aware, we'll be coming forward later this year with our asset management plan that will include our non-core assets as well. And council at that time will then hopefully have a much better picture as to what the infrastructure deficit is, or the infrastructure picture deficit will be for all of our assets. So the intent is to over time use some of those funds to assist in repairing and replacing those assets. So it wouldn't just be for roads, but again, we're in council's hands as to how you wish to use those funds.
I'll turn, Deputy Cabral does have a follow-on, and then we will turn to Mr. Eberhard.
Unless Mr. Eberhard would prefer to go first, if it's in relationship to my question, but if not, I would like to just kind of also look at whatever option that we go with. Let's say option 2, I think it's 3.5%. And then it's an additional percentage going forward. Are we in a position to also know what the impacts are going to be in the next few years if we take that particular option, as far as tax impact is going to be concerned? And that's why I'm asking about this reserve, is if it's going to be significant in a year or two, whether or not we would be able to draw on that to kind of offset a little bit. Would that be something that staff is prepared to provide, given whatever option council might be looking at?
CEO Schmidt?
Through you, Mayor Collins, sorry, to Deputy Mayor Cabral. I think what staff's looking for tonight is just an endorsement from council so that we can move forward with our capital planning. And at that time, council could, again, you could provide direction that you wish to move forward in this direction. To your point, we're only focusing on roads, and roads being one of our major infrastructure assets, if you will, but we have many other assets. So when we bring forward our capital plan on an annual basis, as you know, we need to prioritize, right? So again, there could be just tonight you could provide direction to staff to consider one of these options, with the notion that council still has the opportunity to make a change moving forward once you see the full picture, right? If that helps. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Eberhard? Nothing further to add. Any other questions from council? Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to CEO Schmidt, then would there be an opportunity just to defer this until the fall, or are we needing to make a decision tonight?
CEO Schmidt?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Moore. Obviously council can decide which way they would like to go. I think the intent here is that the roads needs study was completed, was presented to council. We're looking for some direction as to how to move forward to plan for our capital plan for this year. So, if council wants us to essentially continue as is, I would say that would probably be option 1. If you want us to consider investing additional funds into our road project, our road infrastructure, then either option 2 or option 3 is what staff's really looking for your consideration. So again, it's really the planning process today. We would like some direction so that we know how to move forward with our capital plan. That said, like I said, when it comes to the approving of the capital budget, that's somewhat of a different process, if you will.
Councillor Alexander?
So in the interest of moving forward, I would like to throw option 2 on the table. I do feel allows us to move forward, not maintain status quo, with, a prudent dollar amount that hopefully won't see such a big impact immediately on our residents. So.
Thank you. And I have that seconded by Councillor Garwood. We have option 2 before us, council. Is there any further discussion on option 2? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you. Just quickly say that I support option 2. I know we've been in a deficit for some time. We actually, as a council, put money towards that deficit in addition to what we were putting away for a while. I think it was 1%. And we obviously know from the road needs study and our infrastructure deficit that it might hurt, but this is what needs to be done.
Yeah. CEO Schmidt, is there any further comment from members of staff? You get stuck around all night though. Like, are you sure you don't want to turn your mic on? All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. So council, we do have option 2 before us. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. And next we have our Phelpston Marsh Pump House. May I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Alexander and seconded by Councillor Fisher, that the report from the drainage superintendent regarding the notice of request for drain major improvement Phelpston Marsh Pump House dated March 6, 2024 be received, and that council has 2 options. Option 1, council accepts the notice for drain major improvements and wishes to proceed with the possible pump house upgrades as requested, and shall notice via the clerk to the petitioner, Nottawasaga Conservation Authority, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and the Ministry of Agricultural, Foods and Rural Affairs for comment if an environmental appraisal is desired as required under the Drainage Act. Option 2 is that council not proceed with the notice of request for major drain improvement, and that the notice of decision be sent to the owner of the petitioning property via the clerk as requested under the Drainage Act. And at this time, I will turn to, do we want more information on this before drainage to know? All right, Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coggan. So again, in the interest of expediency, I'll try and keep this short. I would like to put option 1 on the table. Part of this did come forward from a staff report that I asked for in the fall of last year, which the pump house was a part of it. Not to belabor the point, essentially the staff report did say that in order, if the township did want to support moving forward with this, the process was for the applicant to submit the proposal at that point. As per option 1, these are the next steps that happen at the point of having an drainage engineer go in and do a study. If we get to that point, that's when we would then reach out to the additional landowners to see if they wanted to move forward, as that engineering report would allow us to determine whether increasing the pump would decrease the flooding of that area. Please correct me if I'm wrong at any given point. I did have the opportunity, Superintendent Drainage Buchanan did take me through the pump house and explain the process to me, so I do appreciate that. So I would like to follow the process and move forward. I feel like I have seen the lands. They do certainly have some flooding issues, especially in the fall and in the spring. So I think it's prudent to move forward to the next step. And I don't feel like this ties our hands in any ways. Through the Drainage Act, this will come back to the table many more times before decisions need to be actually made regarding further monetary. So
I have Councillor Fisher and Deputy Cabral.
I'll also keep it short. I agree. I don't think this does tie our hands to anything. I think we owe it to the agricultural community to be good stewards of the area. Also to, if we're losing, or farmers are losing crops to bad drainage, even partial crops, we need to at least look at what improvements would be. And frankly, maybe they wouldn't make a difference. Maybe there are bigger things at play here, but we don't know until we explore it. And I think we do owe it to the people who operate on those lands, lease those lands, farm those lands. We should look into this and see what we can do to rectify it. So I would support option 1.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. It's not that I don't support option 1. I'm looking at it and I'm seeing the line there that says wishes to proceed with the possible pump house upgrades as requested. I would suggest that it should read, council accepts the notice for drain major improvements and wishes to proceed with the notice of request for drain major improvement. I think we're agreeing to proceed with the application. But the way I read option 1, it makes it sound like we're agreeing to proceed with the actual work. So that would be the only change I would ask for, would be the substitution of those 2. Take that one line out and put the part in about the actual notice itself, which is what this individual is asking for. Is that, you guys okay with that?
Yep. So
that would be my amendment.
We will remove. So after major drain improvement, we will remove and wishes to proceed with possible pump house upgrades as requested. So we could just move on yes. And we're accepting the petition. We're moving
And
forward.
wishes to proceed
Yeah.
with the notice of request for drainage improvement. And take the part about we're agreeing to proceed with the works. I just think it kind of makes it sound like we're gonna do it. And yeah, that's.
Check your keys.
Is it a Ford?
Mhm. I have a mover and seconder for option one, and the mover has agreed that was friendly. So we'll just as the main motion. Sorry, Counselor Fisher?
If I could just ask a question, maybe through you to Mr. Buchanan, maybe, I don't know. What sort of timeline for this to come back to council so we can make a decision, would we estimate? Just for the interest of time, they're starting to plant probably next month.
Yeah, through the Drainage Act, once notice is sent to the conservation and there's a 30-day time period, they have to respond to us. And at that point, if there's any studies required, there's further delays. If not, we can then proceed to appoint a drainage engineer under the Drainage Act to start to look into the current situation there. So it's not a over and done this spring kind of situation, but it's a situation that will take time to move through to correct any potential issue that's found there.
And just for maybe for fun, from the time we received the petition for the Swaley drain to the times that the work took place was how many years?
7 years.
Thank you. So we don't know. All right, so we do have the motion before us to move forward with option one as amended. It was a friendly amendment, so we will not be voting on amendment. We are voting on the main motion. Council, all those in favor of option one? And that has carried. We will now move on to our action reports. We have a mover and seconder to approve the action reports. I have Councillor Alexander and Councillor Thompson. We have 3 action reports in front of us. We have 10.2, which is the 2024 iOS. It's the half-ton pickup truck, the tender award. We have 10.3, the artisan market request for approval for the event, and 10.4, the Ministry of Environment for Conservation Parks proposal to revoke the municipal class EA. Are there any of those that we wish to have pulled to have redirection? Not seeing any to be pulled. Is there any comments to be made on any of the reports tonight? And seeing none, all those in favor, and that has carried. Council, before us now, we have our information reports. Item 2 has already been pulled for redirection. So before us right now is items 1, 3, and 4. I need a mover and seconder for these, please. 1, 3, and 4. I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Alexander. Number 1 is the 2023 Statement of Council and Board Remuneration and Expenses. 3 is the ZB 2024-005. 2364 South Ore Lake Road. And number 4 is SU 2024-01, OP 24003, and ZB 2024-04, the Huron Creek Developments, 157 and 159 Queen Street West and 42 Beverly Street. Of the 1, 3, and 4, are there any additional ones to be pulled? Councillor Moore?
Thank you. Could I pull 1, please?
Council 1. Is it comments, questions, or redirection? Questions? We can have that at now then, yep.
Then through you to CAO Schmidt, because I don't see anybody from finance. We did receive a somewhat explanation about how those expenses are derived, but it still wasn't really clear to me what's included in council member expenses. And I know there's benefits and OMERS, there's potentially claims for your benefits, but not things like cell phone, internet, and that sort of thing. Could I ask that gets spelled out just a little bit better for me and sent via email? We don't need it right this second, but if I could just see what those break down to. Yes, please. Thank you.
CEO Schmidt.
Sorry, Mayor Coggan, through you to Councilor Moore. So just to clarify, it's the benefits piece that you're looking for a further breakdown?
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And just further to that, just again, this can be done over email. When I was trying to understand how this, the numbers actually added up, it seemed like the carry forward was being double added back in because it would have been added in the previous year. I'm assuming that under the benefits, it's in there. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming the benefit expense healthcare spending account is in there. And then it looks like it's being added as a carry forward when it would have already been added the year previously. If I'm reading that wrong, that's fine. But if we could just get that clarification. Do you understand what I'm saying?
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coggan, through you to Councilor Alexander. So I'll do my best. So under the benefits piece, my understanding is that what's being recorded there is, to Councilor Moore's point, it's the statutory deductions or payments that the employer makes. So CPP, employer health tax, OMERS, as well as the employee assistance program, EAP program. So that's kind of the employer paid contributions, if you will, or benefit piece. And then on top of that is your healthcare spending account. So what's in there is actually the expenses that have been incurred. So for some members of council, there may have been a carry forward from 2022 into 2023, along with their 2023 allotment. And then my understanding is the benefit carry forward pieces is of your 2023 allocation. That's what's remaining to carry over to 2024, if that makes sense.
And further clarification will be sent. Thank you. So that's 1, 3, and 4 on the table. Any further questions on those? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to item number 2, which is the Elmville District High School EDHS Community Fundraising History. And I have that pulled by Councilors Garwood and Alexander. Councilor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. First off, I'd like to thank Manager Dean and staff for a very informative report outlining the history of the fundraising initiatives for the Elmville District High School expansion project. Again, this derived from a notice of motion that I brought forward, I believe, a few months ago. And from the report, and of course, I don't want to stifle any potential conversation, but I would like to present an amendment in collaboration with Councilor Alexander that staff be directed to meet with Elmville District High School representatives to discuss possibilities related to investing community fundraising dollars back into Elmville District High School for capital projects for both school and community purposes, and for staff to report back by August of 2024.
Councilor Fisher.
Just for clarification, when I hear capital projects, I guess they will discuss the capital projects with our staff, and then our staff will come back and present, and we would get to, I guess I'll say, pick where it goes or have some say in where it goes, just for clarification.
Councilor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through yourself to Councilor Fisher. Correct. And in a nutshell, that is correct. In the report, it does indicate, I believe back in 2016, there was a motion brought forward by Council of the Day to be the stewards of the funds, provide tax receipts, et cetera. And when those requests come forward, be here for discussion and to collaborate with the school board. So the vision for the staff report or the discussions that, and I don't want to speak for Councillor Alexander, but I'll let you jump in after, would be very much to have staff have those discussions with the school board, and then come back to this body right here and discuss what those requests would look like, and how the $242,215.44 could be invested back into the school for both school and community purposes.
Follow on?
Just a comment. I would certainly support that. I actually really like the fact that our council and our staff would have sort of a hand in how it's spent in the school. I think it actually creates a bit of a connection to it as well. So I definitely like the fact that it would stay in the school, and I'd certainly support that.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'll start and I'll maybe turn to Manager Dean to maybe help here. So my understanding is that the way the agreement was kind of structured with EDHS is that there was two committees, one being an administrative committee, which had representation from the school board, council, township staff, and I'm missing someone.
So there was two committees. So there was a working group committee and administrative committee. So the administrative committee was for kind of the more, I'll call them higher management level decisions. And the working group committee included the community, a member of council, so a member of the community, a member of council, two members of staff, and two school board representatives, one being from their financial side and one being the position that currently kind of oversees community partnerships and the school principal, sorry.
Thank you. CEO Schmidt?
So thank you, Mayor Collins. So further to Manager Dean's comments, and thank you. So just to paint the picture, I guess, is that as it relates to the fitness equipment that was purchased for the fitness room for EDHS, that group of individuals essentially approved the funding, if you will. So the school, I believe, submitted a request to that committee. That committee reviewed the request from the school, and it was through that group that determined, yes, they're in agreement with the request for the equipment, and the Lions Club had donated specifically money towards the fitness equipment, and through that group, it was decided to approve the purchase of the equipment. So if council is now wanting to essentially have council approve capital projects moving forward, that would be a little different than what's happened in the past. And I would just say that, to Councillor Garwood's comments, we agreed to assist with the collection of the funds. And one of the reasons why is because we are a body that could issue charitable donation receipts. That was one of the reasons why they approached us, and we were able to do that. So I just maybe caution in the sense of, having council as the approval authority to release these funds. Your decision, but I'm not sure that that's ultimately what was planned here. So I just throw it out there.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO Schmidt. And do we know if that working group is disbanded at this time? Could there be communication whereby we try and facilitate that same committee to re-get that group of people together? We'll put our member of council on that. And CEO Schmidt?
So through you, Mayor Coughlin, I believe staff are still working with the school board to bring back a revision of that agreement. So we still haven't brought the official agreement back to council. We've been making changes to that. So maybe when we bring that back for council's consideration, we can also bring back this component as it relates to this working committee and what that looks like. And if we need to reestablish it, we can do so.
And do we have I know it's working with other agencies, it's hard to give a timeline. Do we have a timeline on when we can expect this agreement to come back?
Thank you through yourself to the rest of council. Yes, so we have been working with the school board. We did actually expect it back last month into this month. They have had a delay on their end, but we are expecting to see it soon. I've been in conversation with them fairly a lot recently in regards to the last report. So, and in those conversations, the school board has also stated that they would be okay being part of the committee. They don't necessarily want to be the deciding body on the funds either, based on its initial the way it was initially collected and what the initial kind of thoughts were from the community behind the funds.
Okay. I will turn at this point to Councillors Alexander and Garwood. See path forward. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And just stemming off of that, so pulling from the report as well, I just was looking at a line here. So within the report, it does say the Simcoe County District School Board is willing to continue to work with EDHS, Township Council and staff for future requests and projects that would be requested of these funds. I think initially right now we are looking at this from the 10,000 foot level, right? We are saying, let's have these conversations. Let's see what this school requires. Let's present that back to council, right? I look at it as maybe even taking a step back. We wanted the history, right? Some of us were aware and some of us were part of those discussions and some not. We have that history. Now let's go out and have those conversations to see what is a need for both the community and the school, not to just say, let's spend all the money, but where's the most appropriate avenue to invest back in? And then from there, have that discussion. So maybe this aligns well with the agreement that CEO Schmidt was referencing. Maybe there is a committee that also gets discussed, but I could maybe see that as a bit preemptive as to what at least we are bringing forward. But I don't want to speak alone on this. I'm going to throw it over to Councillor Alexander if she has anything to add.
Councillor Alexander.
Yeah, so again, I just essentially the end goal here is the money is sitting there. It's not necessarily our money. It belongs to the community, raised it for that school. It's how do we get that money back into the school, ensuring that we are looking, like including all participants that need to be in the discussion, which I believe is the school, the board, and us to a certain extent, because the money is sitting with us. So how do we get all those people at the table? And if that's the working group, then I'm fine to kind of wait till that comes forward and we start working with that working group, just to, as long as we're moving it forward and the money's not just sitting there not being spent.
So we're just looking at, I don't know what direction that would be to staff. Is it to, sorry, Councillor. See, I was actually asking a question. That's what was happening is thank you. Thank you. So the path forward then, would it be to wait for that? Because wait for that agreement to come back and then, or is it simultaneously while that's happening, we reinstate this working group so that once it gets back, we can get going on it? CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through yourself to council. I think they could happen in tandem together. We still have a relationship with both of the parties involved. We are working and we're in the school through our partnership with them. So I think it could happen in tandem. And the decisions would have to come out in a public setting or the discussions anyway. So that way it would be there would be the different input avenues involved, and the school board also as well, they would let us know of any protocols through that procedure that they need to follow.
Okay, so then it would just be to, on that motion, just and to move towards reinstating the working group. Reconstituting is the word that we'd like to use. Reconstituting, Councillor Fisher. Okay. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the funds will be used specifically for school, because we're interchanging community and school. And I just want to be sure that we're speaking specifically to the school, not projects outside the school. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And yes, to the Deputy Mayor's comment, absolutely, we are specifically speaking within Alma District High School. And maybe just to put a bit of a bow on this as well from at least my perspective, I think I speak to probably a resident a week about these funds. I think Deputy Mayor Cabral would know from being in this position previously, probably the same thing. And I know Councillor Alexander and I have had many conversations. So I think what this does is this shows the community that, yes, we are hearing you and we understand that these funds These funds took a lot of time and effort to raise. They should absolutely be used for what they were initially intended for. So we are moving that forward and making that commitment that we want to invest back into our schools. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And I'm just gonna ask Clerk Ainsworth to read this as it's amended, but I would also look to the mover and seconder to see if this is friendly, so we don't need an official amendment. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add that staff be directed to meet with Elmville District High School representatives to discuss possibilities related to investing community fundraising dollars back into EDHS for capital projects for both school and community purposes, and for staff to report back by August 2024. And that staff work with the relevant partners to reconstitute the relevant working group.
Sounds good. Any further comments or questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, we will be moving on to our verbal reports, and I will turn to CAO Schmidt for the development update. Oh, maybe not. Maybe my script's wrong. CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. My apologies to members of council. I have a lengthy update tonight.
And we will now be moving on to
I have no further updates.
fantastic. And Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I actually do have some county updates. One in particular, with the passing of Councillor Compton, unfortunately, we're all aware of that. But Midland Council has appointed someone to represent their council in conjunction with Deputy Mayor or Mayor Gordon, and it's Deputy Mayor Proust will now sit on Simcoe County Council representing Midland Council. Paramedicine one-time funding. The county received one-time funding awarded from the Ontario Health through Ontario Health Central to the Paramedic Services Community Paramedicine Program. The funding of $152,000 will support their community paramedicine wellness clinics within the homeless shelters and low-income, high 911 use housing residences. The capital funding will be allocated to purchase 2 cardiac monitors / defibs. That's all I'm going to say. And 1 vehicle for community paramedic wellness clinics. The purchases of the new vehicle with an expected life cycle of 9 years will eliminate current leasing costs of approximately $26,000 annually that they've been incurring. Something that might make some residents rather happy is that the county of Simcoe passed a motion to discontinue development of the Environmental Recovery Resource Center that was slated to be located off Horseshoe Valley Road, east of the old second, right here in Springwater Township. The facility was proposed to process organics as part of the county's waste management strategy into the future. Simcoe County's decision to reverse gears was based on a comprehensive staff report wherein staff revisited cost analysis and found significant savings. This prompted their recommendation to County Council. The estimated savings in contracting the organics out are estimated to be in the neighborhood of $221 million over the duration of the contracted services. Staff were directed to proceed with both short-term 3-year and long-term 20-year organics processing agreements. So I guess the ERRC is going to be sitting in their back pocket for a while. And I thought I had something else on here, but that's it. Unless you'd like to add something, Mayor Coughlin.
No, it was I was actually quite surprised. It was a decision that I would say, I don't know if it was unanimous or not, but we didn't even resolve into closed. So it was supported. Yes. At this time, we do have our municipal updates, and I don't remember which end of the table I started at last time, so I will go over here first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a couple things to mention. This past week, the Elmville CRA hosted our first AGM, and we elected a new group of executive members. For the most part, they're staying the same, which is great to see that continuity. I would like to thank the members that are moving on and who have supported us for the past year, but we have 6 excellent people that are volunteering with our ECRA. Speaking of the Elmville Community Recreation Association, we are hosting our Shamrock and Roll event on March the 16th from 8 to 1, live music, dancing, food, etc. We've sold a little over 100 tickets so far, which is great, and we're selling 200, so still time to purchase some tickets, and you can do so from ECRA members. I'd also just like to wrap up by saying the 2024 Springwater Farmers Market Elmville is planning as well underway. The Elmville BIA, we've been very busy making plans and are excited to launch the market the second week of June, which will start, and then the market will wrap up before Labor Day. The market will be Thursday evenings and will run from 5 to 8 p.m. in the community hall parking lot. We've already actually received quite a few folks interested in being vendors and brand new vendors as well. So that's pretty exciting. So we're excited to hopefully grow our market this year. Market vendor applications will be available within the week or so on the Elmville BIA website. And that's it.
Councillor Alexander?
All right, so the Phelpston CRA will be hosting their annual Easter egg hunt on Saturday, March 30th. This is a long-standing great community event. It's very fun. I encourage people in the area to attend. Pre-registration is required as there's a maximum number of participants. Excuse me. Hillsdale CRA is continuing their social time throughout the month of March. This occurs each Wednesday from 2 to 3:30 at the community hall. The Severn Sound Environmental Association is accepting environmental champion nominations until March 8th. There are a number of categories which are on their social media accounts, or please feel free to reach out to me if you want to know those specific categories to submit any nominations for any environmental champions we see out there. And as well, just for this table, I'm sure we all know that the SSEA is hosting an information session this Thursday for all of council. I do encourage everyone to attend and learn more about the great work that the SSEA does. It's a great opportunity to ask any questions you have about the organization or about any specific projects they're doing or you would like to see them do.
Councillor Thompson?
The Springwater Library would like to hear from you. They're in the process of doing a survey to see from our residents to see how they're doing. They're currently at about 600 surveys, and the survey is still open, closing this Saturday. The link may be found at the library's website and social media pages or in the branches. Our library is busy planning March break programs. Taylor Swift Dance Party on Tuesday, March 12th, Elmville branch. Dinosaur Small World, Tuesday, March 12th at Midhurst branch. Make a Mug, Thursday, March 14th at all branches. And Percy Jackson Trivia, Friday, March 15th at the Elmville branch. Would also like to say that the Magic Show has sold out and has a waiting list. The Anton Mills Recreation Association is having their annual rabbit run and Easter egg hunt. Registration is open. That will be on Saturday, March the 30th. The rabbit run, there'll be a 5K run for 4 and under, a 1.5K run and a 3K run. And I would personally like to challenge members of council to come and join me in the 3K run. I will personally commit to cover the registration fee of $2 for each and any one of you that will join me in the run. So thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. If Manager Dean would indulge me, I would like for you to provide an update with the Grenfell Hall renovations, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, through yourself. to the rest of council. So the Grenfell Community Hall or Community Center project is nearing completion. There is a few tasks that will be completed when the weather warms up in terms of painting painting of the siding and a few other of the outdoor items. Indoors, most of the tasks are done, minus some deficiencies and just minor I guess, finalization items. The floor was painted on Monday this week, so we haven't actually been able to enter the building again since the floor was painted, because we do have to give it till Friday to do a check on it. But the kitchen is now in place. The windows have been replaced. Siding repairs have been done. Electrical updates, new lighting, and I'm missing a few other things along the list, but many of the different items to really give that building a refresh and getting ready to open it to the community. So once we do enter it again, once we give the floor the time to dry, we will take some pictures and provide a further update to council. I can provide that at the next council meeting.
Fantastic, thank you. Councillor Fisher?
Excellent. Well, I just wanted to say it's been a great year at the skating rink. We just officially closed it today. So it's turned into a puddle in the last few days, but I want to thank all the volunteers. We had a really great season, and we did the best that we could with the weather we had, and I actually think it turned out really excellently. And I also want to say I'll have details in the next meeting for our Midhurst Soapbox Derby that we have annually, and it's a big event. And so I will have details on that, including a date. And also, too, if you know anyone who wants to take part, build a car, I do have specifications on it. And we're hoping to get some new racers out there. Maybe Councillor Garwood, I don't know. Just throwing it out there. So, you have to swing a hammer, though. You have to build it yourself. So.
Oh, thank you. Are there any other municipal updates? Seeing any, we will move on to our notices of motion. And at this time, I have a notice of motion from Deputy Cabral, seconded by Councillor Garwood, and I will turn to Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you, Councillor Garwood, for seconding this. We've had conversation, as well as I've had conversations with Mayor Coughlin, who actually saw what was wrong with that particular stretch of roadway near miss. I think it was actually a collision, was it not? Yeah. Anyhow, the recommendation that we'd like to put forward, or I'd like to put forward with Councillor Garwood, is whereas the Township of Springwater recognizes the importance of improving roadway safety for motorists by continuing to establish strategies designed to minimize traffic conflict wherever possible. Whereas Yonge Street South in Elmville between Queen Street East and the settlement's southerly boundary has generated safety concerns in relation to driver confusion respecting clear roadway position for both left-hand turns and passing, due in part to the overall width of the roadway, the visible asphalt pavement seams, and the current pavement markings coupled with regular fading of roadway markings. Be it resolved that council finds it prudent to install a continuous center turn lane on Yonge Street South between Queen Street East and the settlement's southerly boundary as road width permits, in conjunction with appropriate signage as deemed by staff. And further, that staff be directed to effect this change through the 2024 Public Works operational budget as a Public Works operational matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I wanted to thank the Deputy Mayor for bringing this forward. It's 100% necessary and absolutely needed. I can't tell you how many times, even myself driving down that road and somebody passes you on the shoulder because they think it's 2 lanes because it is that wide. So having that turn lane, I can just think about the schools turning down Robinson towards the high school as well. Again, this is going to be a necessary change and needed for the Elmville community. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Cabral.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that has carried. And at this time, I have a motion to extend, moved by Councillor Garwood, seconded by Councillor Fisher. All those in favor? And that has carried. And I understand this next one's being pulled. Okay.
Let's do it quick.
Oh, Councillor Fisher. So I need a seconder. Councillor Fisher. I have Councillor Moore.
All right.
Sorry, just your microphone. Sorry, Councillor Fisher.
as per usual. Treasurer of a municipality shall in each year or on or before March 31st provide the council of the municipality an itemized statement on remuneration and expenses paid in the previous year to each member of council in respect to his or her services as a member of council or any other body, including a local board to which the member has been appointed by council or on which the member holds office by virtue of being a member of council, each member of council in respect to his or her services as an officer or employee of the municipality or other body described in a clause A above, and each person and other than a member of council appointed by the municipality to service as a member of any body, including a local board in respect of his or her services as a member of the body. And whereas a yearly statement of remuneration and expenses as prescribed under the Municipal Act is made available through a council agenda prior to March 31st each year, and whereas council wishes to provide further transparency specifically in relation to council expenses, in addition to the requirements of the Municipal Act, be it therefore resolved that the staff be directed to prepare a council expense report to be provided on a quarterly basis and included on a regular meeting agenda. And further, that this report itemized township covered expenses for all members of council, not including yearly council remuneration or remuneration and expenses provided to council by a local board. Brief synopsis, we get the report anyway yearly. I'm just asking for it to be quarterly.
Thank you. And adding to that, the information, the report's only going to be as accurate as the information that we give to staff. So my suggestion would be that if we're asking staff to prepare a report on our quarterly expenses, we need to have a deadline. And if we don't get those expenses in, that's on us and it's, they report on that. So I just think that that way it's accurate reporting, because right now council can submit their expenses once a year. And if you're fine with that amendment?
I'm fine with that amendment.
Deputy Cabral?
Sorry, Mayor Coughlin, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I think, are you suggesting that if a councilor or a member of council happens to miss the reporting deadline, that their expenses would no longer be reimbursed? Because if that's the case, I won't be able to support it. I think the information that's available should be the information that's provided. If a councilor member for whatever reason, they're on holidays, whatever, and they put it in a little bit later, the week after it's come out, then it's just not captured in that particular one, because the requirement is to have it once per year by March 31st. So if I don't put mine in a timely fashion and it shows, oh, he didn't put any mileage in this particular quarter, and the next time I'm twice as high as everybody else, that's on me.
And thank you. And I
just want to clarify that part.
And while I see that, it's if we're looking to have a report that shows the expenses, we have that. If we're looking to have it provided quarterly so that residents see what we're expensing quarterly, we need to expense quarterly then. Otherwise, we're just there's like a snapshot of some people's expenses, but not everyone's expenses. Deputy Cabral?
Yeah, and I understand that, but what I'm trying to, I guess, say is if it's going to be quarterly with the best information that's available to staff, then so be it. A lot of this is reimbursement. It's not something that is being given to members necessarily. It's a reimbursement of a cost that quite possibly a member has already expensed on behalf of the township. And I don't think it would be reasonable to expect that if they didn't get it in on the third month, by the end of the month, that all of a sudden that means that the $200 or $300 that council member might have been entitled to for mileage or a conference or getting there or a room or whatever, all of a sudden that is not going to be reimbursed. So I'm okay with it going forward. I just on a quarterly basis, I just would suggest that staff use what they have available, and that's what gets presented. At the end of the year, when you add it all up, that's, transparency still going forward.
Yeah, I think that frankly it would make the minority of the expenses just mileage and things like that. And I think we naturally, anyone would want to be reimbursed for it, so they likely would have it in on time, but I do agree with the deputy mayor. I wouldn't want that to cap somebody or where they wouldn't be reimbursed for it. So I still think it would be relatively accurate, the vast majority of it to do it quarterly, so.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I fully support the motion. That's no problem here. I do think about comparing things back to, private industry and workplaces as well. I know from personal professional experience, there's a timeline for submitting expenses. And if I wait 6 months to submit all at once, I do not get those expenses. That is up to me and my responsibility to ensure that they are submitted on time. I'm not saying, go one way or the other. I'm just saying, comparing it to what I'm used to, that's something that is quite frequent and oftenly found in the professional industry. So, but I do support the motion.
All right, so the motion as it is before us, is there any further discussion? All those in favor? And that has carried. Moving on to Councillor Garwood's notice of motion, and I need a seconder for that, please. Councillor Alexander. Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Whereas the Township of Springwater's current economic development strategy was approved in 2010, and whereas growth forecasts within the economic development strategy are outdated and do not accurately reflect the projected growth by the township into 2031 and beyond, and whereas an economic development strategy is the foundation for future planning and will assist as the township continues to grow. Be it therefore resolved that council hereby direct that a program change proposing an update to the existing economic development strategy be presented during the 2025 budget deliberations for council consideration.
Yeah, and Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And again, I don't need to rehash it specifically, but I did want to pull one line from the 2010 economic development strategy, which again is our most current strategy, even though it is almost 15 years old. Strategic planning is one of the most important tools that a community or economic development organization can use for effective development. It is a means for establishing strategic initiatives and maintaining effective programming based on economic opportunities, constraints, and the needs for a community. So again, I believe that an economic development strategy completed within this decade is part of the foundation for future planning here in Springwater and will assist us as we continue to grow.
Councillor Alexander?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just to kind of further on what Councillor Garwood was saying, I do agree. When I did ask the question and realized it was 2010 versus 2018, because there's a bit of confusion there. That's a long time for our last economic development strategy. When we look at the growth potential in the township, some of the projects that have potentially come forward in the south end with respect to the community hub, there's been a lot of moving pieces here. I think we need to have a strategy. An overall strategy of how we see this township growing prior to, just randomly saying yes and doing things. So I am in support of moving forward with an updated strategy.
Council, all those in favor? And that is carried. We now have a notice of motion, Councillor Fisher, and a seconder, please. Councillor Moore, and I'll turn the floor to Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. All right. Whereas in March 2019, the Government of Ontario passed the Community Safety and Policing Act, CSPA, as part of the Comprehensive Ontario Policing Services Act 2019, which will come into force and effect on April 1st, 2024, thereby repealing and replacing the current Police Services Act 1990. And whereas the CSPA is an opportunity to modernize policing and enhance community safety in Ontario with the government's commitment to strengthen public confidence in policing and maintain key independent policing oversight functions, demonstrate respect for frontline policing personnel by building the right supports and fair processes to enable police to effectively perform their duties and ensure public safety and delivery quality and efficient policing while also realizing better value for money. And whereas the Township of Springwater, being in Huronia West Detachment Area, along with the town of Wasaga Beach and Township of Clearview, has received approval from the Solicitor General for the creation of a joint police services board under the new legislation. And whereas the township is awaiting the release of associated regulations, outlining detailed requirements for police services board prior to continuing with its implementation, which is expected March 2024. Be it therefore resolved that the council for the Township of Springwater affirms its commitment to prioritizing community safety and continue to work with our partners at the Huronia West OPP detachment to ensure adequate policing service levels continue to be provided to the residents of Springwater. And further, that staff be directed to provide an updated report to the requirements of the Community Safety and Policing Act as regulations are made available. In a nutshell, this is something that will be provincially mandated. And essentially, I just want to give our staff, the direction and know that they have the support of council to move ahead. Really start laying the groundwork for this police services board. And I think also, a lot of growth inside of Springwater, particularly in the south end, but certainly throughout all of Springwater. And I think policing will, we don't want to be behind the 8 ball with this. And, recently in Midhurst, we've had a few cars get stolen. I think we have in Ward 4 as well. We are seeing growth within the community. We will see increased traffic of transient people, and unfortunately crime does come with that. And I think that as a council, we need to be ahead of the curve with this and let staff know that we want them to start building this police services board for our residents. So, well, that's why I bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO Schmidt, this provincial mandate, does it require direction from council, or is this something different than what staff have already been working on?
Through you, Mayor Colgan. As you may recall, the police services legislation came into play, if you will, and directed us to essentially start to create a formation of a police services board. That has happened between the partnership with Clearview as well as Wasaga Beach. Each of us got together with Wasaga Beach leading the charge. Essentially, we came to previous council, with the composition of the board, which is 11 members. And essentially, it's I believe 2 members of council from each municipality, as well as a community representative. And then I believe there's 2 provincial appointees that will be appointed by the Solicitor General's office. So that has all been approved. What hasn't been approved is who's going to sit on those in those seats. So having had a recent discussion with the Solicitor General's office, there hasn't, to be quite honest with you, there hasn't been a lot of communication, to be quite honest with you, from that respect to them, but there has not been a lot of communication with us about kind of what needs to be put in place in the next short period of time. Now, April 1st is coming real quick. Those members that are appointed, whoever they may be, have to undertake mandatory training. And I know Clerk Ainsworth is working with, our Director of Corporate Services and Clerk Ainsworth is working with her counterparts in Clearview and Wasaga Beach in the hopes of trying to bring, I believe, actually, you know what? Maybe I'll let her speak to it.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Yes, as the CEO mentioned, I am working with the counterparts to bring forward a report to all of our respective councils. At this time, we are still waiting for the regulations to be released. They haven't been signed by the minister or released. They were just out for public consultation, which closed in the middle of February. So at this point, once the regulations are released, we will even find out when the regulations actually come into effect, which will be at a future date. So I will be reporting back to council to at least seek the council member representatives. We will seek council's direction to go out for the public member. And then at that point, we would be waiting for the mandatory training. There's criminal reference checks that need to come into play. So that will take us through a few months until the regulations possibly come into effect. We're also working with the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards to bring a presentation to council to further explain the entirety of the act, its effect, what council and the township's responsibilities are versus the police detachment, just just to provide council with a holistic understanding of what changes are coming down the pipe.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. We know that it's going to be coming down the road, and I don't have an issue with this. I think it's good to have it here and let the community know that, you know, it's on our minds at least. But at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to when those provincial appointees are ready to sit on our board, because everything else has to be in place before they can do that. So until they're ready to sit at the table, all we can do is wait. So we'll see how that plays out, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
It's almost 150 boards that they have to sort out. 122, I think I remember. So I don't, yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast they get around to getting this done. So we do have this. So the staff be directed to provide an update report for the requirements on that. So what was said, is there anything in addition to what was mentioned here this evening?
No, I think if the report's coming through, I think we need some fulsome discussion on it. I think also the public would like to know what exactly does this mean? What does it entail? And what does policing look like in our communities underneath this, right? So I think the direction really is, yes, to have staff come back with it, but also to communicate what this looks like. You know, there's certainly questions with our present policing system. And I think that I've had a lot of people reach out to me as of late and you know, we hear you guys talking about it, but what's really going on? So I think it's really just a little bit more transparency as we become more aware that it comes to council and gets communicated to the public. So that's what I'm looking for.
Theo Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I was just saying to our Director of Corporate Services with regards to our upcoming town hall, this could be a topic that we might be able to provide some information on.
Great. Council, all those in favor? And that has carried. Are there any additional items for future consideration? No? Oh, and I guess I need to ask if there's any more notices of motion? Not seeing any. We have no bylaws. May I have a mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw, please? I have Councillor Alexander and Deputy Cabral that bylaw 2024-016 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on March 6th, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. And our adjournment, please. Councillors Moore and Fisher, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 10:10 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on March 20th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. All those in